Welcome to another beautiful day in Tallahassee. It is February 20th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It is time for our regularly scheduled City Commission meeting. I would like to call on Commissioner Jeremy Matlow to introduce our guest to provide the invocation. Commissioner Matlow, either.
I'd like to invite Reverend Leatherwood from the Unitarian Universalist Church to come up for the invocation.
Thank you.
Rise in body or in spirit as I invite you into a time of prayer, a time of contemplation. Spirit of life and love, bring into our consciousness and in that way into this space all of the diversity of people and communities of this city of Tallahassee. Invite into our minds and hearts all those who share this city together, Christians of all kinds, Jews and Muslims, Buddhists and Hindus and Sikhs, pagans and atheists and agnostics, and seekers of all kind. This group of city representatives and all of us here today have the honor and the duty to represent the people of Tallahassee. To speak for all those people, the straight and the gay, the lesbian and the transgender people, the people of all races and cultures, of all incomes and all levels of wealth. The people of Tallahassee that include the hijab-wearing mothers and the disabled veterans that I see every morning when I drop my daughter off at her elementary school. I call into our hearts two aspects of divine love. In Islam, known as Ir-Rahman and Ir-Rahim. In Buddhism, wisdom and compassion. May we center our hearts in a love that shines on all people, the just and the unjust. As Jesus described, even the sun shines on all people. And let us bring the wisdom of that love that knows what we need. Not just that love that shines on all, but that love that, like a surgeon's scalpel, knows just what medicine is needed for the moment. Because it's not enough just to have good intentions. It takes wisdom to know what's needed. So I ask you, Spirit of love, Spirit of life, to guide us today, to guide the hearts and minds of our city representatives and of all of us gathered today, so that we may, from a place of love, work with wisdom to bring what's best for all the people of this city. May it be so, and may all of us here today be among those to make it so. Amen, 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 and blessed be.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reverend, thank you very much. We certainly do appreciate that. Mr. City Manager, do we have any modifications to the agenda today?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Item 5.03 has been added to your agenda, and the attachment, the resolution to item 13.05 has been updated.
Excellent. Any comments? Any questions? Moving on into presentations. I will have the dubious honor of the first presentation, followed by my colleague, the Mayor Pro Tem. Then we'll make a presentation, followed by my colleague, Commissioner Williams-Cox. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very exciting day. I would like to formally recognize and ask the North Florida Christian State Champion football team to please come join me down front. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. This is an amazing group of young men. And by the way, I hope y'all got out of school a little early today to come down here. I mean, it's probably worth it. But this is your 2A state champion football team. We are extremely proud of you. Kids, I saw you jumped in here too. I saw you jump in here too. You part of the coaching staff here? Gentlemen, you do realize this is some of the best hands ever to come out of Florida State University right here. Kes McCorvey, absolutely. So let me take a second right now. And I'm going to read to you this proclamation on behalf of myself, my colleagues, and wait, hold on. Cynthia Shingles, where are you, Cynthia?
Yeah,
Come on down.
Come
on down. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. I work with Cynthia on the 4th floor, and I believe you have somebody special on this team.
Yes, I do. My grandson, DeAndre McCray.
All right, go stand next to your grandson. Go on. From the governing body of the city of Tallahassee, a proclamation. Whereas the North Florida Christian School football team defeated Champaign Catholic School 28-20 to win the 2018 FHSAA 2A state championship. And whereas it is the Eagles' 8th state championship title in school history. And whereas during the playoffs, North Florida Christian School defeated FAMU Developmental Research School. Kez says it was out of love. All right. University Christian School and Victory Christian School, some of the most powerful schools in the FHSAA 2A. And whereas this year's team overcame mid-season adversity and injuries to finish 9-4, winning 5 of their last 6 games, including all 4 games in the championship playoff. And whereas 13 NFC Eagles were named to the FACA All-District Team. And whereas, please raise your hand when I recognize you, Von Hayes, Quan Myrick, TJ Ward were named to the first team All-Big Bend team, with Von Hayes winning the Defensive Player of the Year award. And whereas Tredarius Langston, here we go, Von Hayes, TJ Ward, and JD Jerry represented North Florida Christian in the War of the Border All-Star Game. And whereas JD Jerry was awarded the Dale Doss Courage Award from the Tallahassee Quarterback Club. And whereas D'Angelo Mitchell was awarded the Mickey Andrews Defensive Player of the Year Award from the Tallahassee Quarterback Club. And whereas Preston Reese, Jackson Giles, Quan Myrick, D'Angelo Mitchell served as the captains of the team. And whereas NFC's football coach is Steve Price, athletic administrator is Mike Posey, and school administrator is Tom Phillips. And whereas NFC has been supporting families in the city of Tallahassee, Big Bend area since 1966, now therefore I, John E. Daly, as mayor, along with my colleagues on the city commission, do hereby recognize the North Florida Christian football team for winning the 2018 FHSAA state championship, and witness whereof I have unto sent in my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed, signed by myself, John Daly, this date, February 20th, 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, your state football championship. Ladies and gentlemen, the coach. The coach of the Eagles, Steve Price. Coach?
I'd like to just thank the city of Tallahassee and the community for the support that they've given us for many, many years. It's a neat place to be. I'm not a Tallahassee native, but I am so thankful that I live in this great city. I would like to explain, we're missing a couple of guys. We really like our guys to play multiple sports, and we've got several that are on the baseball team that are they start the season with games this Friday and Saturday, so they're not here. But again, we just are so thankful for you and your support, and thank you for this honor.
All right, we're going to take one picture. Right here in the middle. All right. Get the whole. How about that? Here we go. Look at the back of the room right there. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you. So you can stand there for the rest of the meeting, or are you it's up to you, whatever you want, guys.
Thank you
no
very
problem,
much.
Coach.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. It is absolutely my pleasure, after following our state championship football team, to present this proclamation in recognition of Multiple Sclerosis Month. Easy for me to say, right? I'd like to ask Natasha Sargent if she would come join me. Hello, Natasha. It's good to see you. And the proclamation reads, whereas multiple sclerosis is a neurological disease of the central nervous system affecting 2.3 million people worldwide, and whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society reports that in our state, more than 28,000 people are reportedly suffering with MS, and that the disease generally strikes people in the prime of life between the ages of 20 and 50 years. And the cause and course of the often debilitating symptoms of MS remain unknown, and no cure currently exists. Whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has been committed for more than 70 years to a world free of MS, heightening public knowledge about the insight into the disease, and whereas since 1946, Multiple Sclerosis Society has been a driving force of MS research, relentlessly pursuing prevention, treatments, and hopefully a cure, and has invested more than $900 million in groundbreaking research. Whereas funds raised through the National Multiple Sclerosis Society fuel $42.1 million, funding 380 research projects at the best medical centers, universities, and other institutions throughout the U.S. and abroad, leading to many breakthroughs in the treatment of MS. And whereas stopping MS in its tracks, restoring what has not been lost, and ending MS forever is the mission of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and one that all Americans and Tallahasseans should support. And whereas the city of Tallahassee recognizes the importance of finding the cause and cure of MS, and expresses its appreciation for the dedication that the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has shown toward creating a world free of MS. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, as mayor, along with my colleagues on the City Commission, do hereby proclaim March 2019 as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. Thank you, Natasha.
Not exactly sure what I'm supposed to say, but multiple sclerosis is a disease that affects many of us in many different ways, and it's something that sometimes you can see and sometimes you can't see. So just because it's something that you don't see on the outside, it's something that it just affects us in many different ways. And you may see that blue placard in our window, and some days you have great days and some days you have bad days. Just join us on the walk on April 6th, and if you feel the need to come out and help us walk or make a donation, just please do so. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams-Cox for a presentation.
If we could, we'd like to ask these icons of our community to please join me up front. Mrs. Eva B. Manning, the daughter of Dr. Charles U. Smith, Shauna Smith, the family of Mrs. Laura Dixie, her son Sam Dixie, and his wife. If there's someone here representing the Dr. C.K. Steele family, please join us. And Mr. Adna Marsland, President of the National Pan-Hellenic Council, and the family of Mr. Eddie Barrington, if his son Kenneth or if someone from the Barrington family is here. And Mr. President would like for the members of the Pan-Hellenic Council to please join us. This is a Black History Month proclamation. Whereas the contribution of African Americans have helped shape and mold the rich history of our nation, and whereas African American History Week, celebrated in February, was created in 1926 in the United States by historian Carter G. Woodson, and whereas Black History Month was first recognized by President Gerald Ford in 1976, and whereas the city of Tallahassee has enjoyed a long tradition of leadership and tremendous impact from African American community leaders like Mrs. Eva B. Manning. You can wave your hand so they'll know who you are. Dr. Charles U. Smith, being represented by his daughter Shauna Smith.
All right.
Mrs. Laura Dixie, being represented by her son and daughter-in-law. And the Dr. C.K. Steele's family, we all know who they are. And the National Pan-Hellenic Council. The National Pan-Hellenic Council is Black Greek letter organizations that have been around, many of them more than 100 years. And Mr. Eddie Barrington. When I talked to Kenneth Barrington, he is the husband, of course, of Reverend Helena Barrington, and at that time she was in the hospital. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. These individuals help make Tallahassee a better place. And whereas such knowledge can strengthen the insight of our community regarding issues of civil rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barrier of equality for African Americans and the struggle against racial discrimination. And whereas Tallahassee celebrates Black History Month by honoring the achievements and contributions of our many African American leaders and pioneers. Now, therefore, I, Diane Williams-Cox, as Commissioner, and on behalf of the Mayor and the City Commission, do hereby proclaim February as Black History Month. May we continue to celebrate African Americans this month and throughout the year. And I believe there's a copy of each proclamation for each of you.
Shauna.
Actually, for each organization, so. And at this time, if you would like to have brief remarks, we will welcome them.
President.
Take her out front there. There's a mic right there.
Thank you.
I understand she taught 68 years. Well, but she's not a day over 65. Truthfully, it's a happy 94. Wow.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As the president of the Tallahassee National Panhellenic Council, the executive board, and our participating members of the MPHC, which include the Gamma Mu Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Delta Kappa Omega and Chi Upsilon Omega chapters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Tallahassee Alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, the Chi Omega chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the Tallahassee and Gaston County alumni chapters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Beta Lambda Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and the Alpha Upsilon Zeta and Chi Theta Zeta chapters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and last but not least, the Beta Delta Sigma and Mu Mu Sigma chapters of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. We would like to extend our sincerest thanks and gratitudes to Mayor John Daly and every member of the Tallahassee City Commission for bestowing this honor upon our organizations today. We would like to also thank Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, who thought it not robbery to nominate our organization for this great honor. Since 1924, the Tallahassee National Panhellenic Council has worked to foster cooperation amongst its member organization, focusing on matters of mutual concern, working together to improve the greater Tallahassee community, and supporting undergraduate growth and development to promote the general welfare of men, women, and children in the greater North Florida geographic area. As we thank the Commission for this great honor, we remembered our shared principle that our reward is not rooted in awards and accolades, but in the continued service of others. For service to our communities is the root of our historically Black Greek letter sororities and fraternities. Again, we celebrate Black History Month. As we celebrate Black History Month, we offer our sincere thanks for this great honor, and we look forward to providing the city of Tallahassee with continued service in the years to come. Thank you.
I'd like to accept this recognition humbly on behalf of my mother, Mrs. Laura Dixie. She was a fearless, tireless, foot soldier in the fight for civil rights in this community. And as probably Mrs. Manning can attest, she was a very humble woman. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you to the Panhellenic Council, the Commission, Mayor Daley, and all my friends and my Tallahassee residents and friends I know and faces I see. And I know my dad is watching me. You know, if you knew my dad, he would have a lot of words to say right now. But anyway, on behalf of the Panhellenic Council and the Commission, I do want to thank them for bestowing this honor upon my father, Dr. Charles U. Smith, who was very much an activist on the civil rights front, not only locally, nationally, internationally. And he was always, he appeared before this commission he's probably set a record for many times of appearing before commission on various ideas relating to the Capital City Country Club, FAMU Way, and some other injustices that he saw. So to keep it short and brief, thank you on behalf of my father and my family for Dr. Charles E. Smith. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, do we have any announcements?
No, sir, we don't.
All right, we are on citizen input on agenda items. If you are here and have the opportunity to speak on an item when it comes up, let me encourage you to do so. If you will not be here, if you think when the item comes up, we're providing an opportunity now. Let me be very clear. I have been accused of being soft on the time, so we are going to try to keep everybody on track around 3 minutes. So please be respectful of your time and of your colleagues and friends' time that want to speak as well. However, let me say, everyone is welcome in the chambers, and everyone will have an opportunity to speak if they would like to. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Thank you. We do have 3 people who have indicated they want to speak at this portion of the
Wonderful.
meeting. The vast majority of our speakers who fill out a card do want to speak as the item arises. The first speaker right now would be Dr. Holofield, speaking on item 1302 on your agenda, and I'll remind him and others that if you would start with your name and address, I will then start your time.
Excellent. Dr. Holofield, it is great to see you. Welcome. And if you can work with me on 3 minutes, that'd be great, sir. Note for the record, Dr. Holofield just laughed at the podium. We appreciate that. Dr. Holofield, the floor is yours.
Dr. Holofield, Longleaf Court. I'd like to say that every now and then the city gets it right. This agenda item for the NAACP, I think is something that the city can feel good about.
Thank you.
Because it's long overdue. The city has had a number of dollar-a-year contracts, but not all of them have been for a good purpose. For example, that Capital City Country Club contract for $1 a year, which was specifically designed to keep blacks out of Capital City Country Club for 99 years. And it's interesting that C.U. Smith is being honored. C.U. Smith is a legend in the black community, and he spoke out very forcefully against that Capital City Country Club arrangement to deny access for blacks to Capital City Country Club. He also fought against that lease agreement with Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, if I recall. They get access to $1 billion worth of assets for $1 a year. And right now they got a board, 20-member board with no black women on it. just completely unacceptable. But it seems to me that the commission is, in the words of Spike Lee, trying to do the right thing. So we need to applaud them when they do the right thing. And for that, and as a lifetime member of the NAACP, I applaud you for this action that you're taking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Edward Oaksford, speaking on item 1305. The other individual at this time will be Linda Mankiewicz.
Excellent. Welcome.
Hi, Ed Oaksford, Harriman Circle, Tallahassee, Florida.
Wonderful.
Honored Mayor, Commissioners, and City Administrators. Pleasure to be here. I just want to take a couple minutes to applaud you on the Clean Energy Plan. I think it's a wonderful idea. I've been a long-time activist in environmental issues, and I'm sure some of the folks, at least one of them, recognizes that way back into the coal plant days. But I do want to say that I'd like to go one step further and indicate that I also support Tally 35 suggested recommendations, amendments that include primarily for the actual addition of a clean energy plan, not just a plan, but something that's going to actually be there as a part of this issue and a part of this resolution. I applaud you on your effort, and I'm proud to be a part of a city that's taking a visionary look forward and recognizing the real power that climate change is having in all of our lives. And I try to do that myself as an individual in my private life, and I feel heartwarming appreciation for the city who's trying to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Linda Mankiewicz.
Ms. Mankiewicz, great to see you. Thanks for coming out. 24 hours.
I feel blessed. Thank you very much for hearing us today. I come to speak on the 13.05 item, which is the sustainability ordinance. In 2017, a number of very committed individuals, of which I had the privilege to be one, presented you with a resolution that had us reaching 100% sustainability by 2035. And until 2 weeks ago, that was the year, when this resolution was presented to staff, they moved the deadline back to 2050. Coincidentally, this week, there's news, and I didn't have time to email you the link, but the news item is the city of Chicago this week adopted a resolution to be 100% sustainable by 2035. If it's good for Chicago, it's good enough for Tallahassee. Don't pussyfoot around. Be firm and be resolute to make it to 2035, because I fear that in 2035, if we haven't been there, we're all going to be walking around with water up to our waists, and it's not going to matter. If you can't do 2035, on New Year's Eve in 2034, just amend the resolution. There's no fine. There's no penalty. You can do that. But don't lower your expectations. Stick with the 2035. You're the ones who give the orders to the staff, not the other way around. You tell them what to do and put the date back to 2035. And I'm done. Thank you.
Excellent.
The only other speaker at this time, Mayor, is Rick Miner with the Second Harvest of the Big Bend. Would like to...
Commissioner Miner, welcome to your city commission chambers. You know what?
Mayor.
We'll give you 3 minutes and 20 seconds, okay? So it's good to
Thank
see
you,
Rick.
Mayor, commissioners, city-appointed officials, as well as to the City of Tallahassee staff and Star Metro. In the Big Bend, 1 in 5 people experiences hunger on a regular basis. To help combat this problem, the City of Tallahassee, Star Metro, and Second Harvest of Big Bend have teamed up to host their annual Stuff the Bus food drive. From now through February 28th, non-perishable food donations will be accepted on Star Metro buses and at 50 locations across Tallahassee as part of the drive. The food donated will benefit Second Harvest in its mission to fight hunger in the 11-county Big Bend region. Through the Stuff the Bus drive, anyone in the Tallahassee area has the opportunity to join the fight against food insecurity. Last year's drive received almost 2,000 pounds of food donations, which helped Second Harvest provide nearly 1,800 meals to local Tallahassee families. Let's continue looking out for each other by helping those who are most in need in our community. For more information about how you can help Stuff the Bus and how as members of the public can contribute, including a full list of food donation drop-off locations, visit the Star Metro website at talgov.com/starmetro. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Commissioners, good to see you.
Mayor, that's the last speaker we have at this portion of the meeting. We do have people who want to speak on the agenda items as they come, as well as some unagended speakers. We will take them at the conclusion of our meeting.
Excellent. Mr. City Manager, do we have any official communications from other boards or governing entities?
No, sir, we do not.
We're on the consent agenda item. Have any of the consent agenda items been pulled?
No, sir.
Move consent, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved the consent agenda. It is seconded by Commissioner Bryant and Commissioner Williams-Cox. No further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously. We are on item 11.01. Is there any elected body to bring forward before the meeting? Any communications?
No, sir.
Excellent. Do we have any under 12.01, any introduction of ordinances?
No, sir, we do not.
Excellent. We're on Section 13, Policy Formation and Direction, specifically 13.01. Mr. City Manager, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Item 13.01, staff recommends your authorization of a $195,000 grant from the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund to sponsor the construction of 3 additional affordable homes in partnership with the Big Bend Habitat for Humanity, and to seek reimbursement for a portion of the city's contribution through the State Community Contribution Tax Credit Program. This action represents the 3rd year of the city's partnership with Habitat through the program. Over the last 2 years, city staff has volunteered almost 2,000 hours to build 5 Habitat for Humanity homes, something we're very proud of. And Michael Parker, actually, I'd like Michael to give us just a real quick presentation of this item. It dovetails nicely into your priority of affordable housing, and I think it's really a good news story.
Yes, sir. Well, this is, as the manager mentioned, this will be the 3rd year we've entered in this partnership. It's pretty unique. Not only do we end up building additional affordable housing in our community, we use Habitat as the vehicle, which is a great vehicle. As you know, it's not only a house building, but a community building enterprise. Last year, we built 3 houses in the Griffin Heights neighborhood. That's what we're proposing to do in this upcoming cycle. And on top of that, we've been able to leverage a state program, which is called the Community Contribution Tax Credit Program, where we're actually able to recoup about 80% of the funds that we're contributing, which we then roll over and then subsequently do that again on the subsequent year. And I will point out that I think we're the only municipality in the state of Florida that is actually using the Community Contribution Tax Credit in that manner. It's been a great opportunity for our city employees to get to meet the residents in the community. And I will point out that in the past, our city commissioners have been out there with hammers and nail aprons on as well to help us build those houses.
I was actually one of the individuals that have been invited to leave the actual work and just go pick up lunch for everybody because of my lack of skill, Curtis. It's very embarrassing. Do we have any speakers on this item, Mr. Cook?
We do not.
Do we have any comments, questions, motions?
Move staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition to what Star Metro does to provide nutritious food, non-perishable food for families and seniors in our area, what the city of Tallahassee does in partnership with Habitat for Humanity to provide affordable housing for individuals and families, actually, in our community is tremendous. There is nothing more endearing than to be there for the ribbon cutting. And if you don't make it to the home building, be there for the ribbon cutting, commissioners and mayor, because there is nothing more endearing than to see those families turn that key and walk into their home, which is the American dream. That has been the city of Tallahassee's commitment to providing affordable housing in the Tallahassee area for a number of years now. And Michael, thank you for your leadership in making that happen. And if you would also extend our thanks to the director and staff at Habitat for Humanity for their partnership in helping to make this happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Seeing no further comment, item's been properly moved. Staff recommendation's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. We're on item 13.02. Mr. City Manager for the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's our pleasure and real privilege to recommend your authorization to amend the current lease agreement for the property at 719 West Brevard Street to accelerate the donation of the property to the Tallahassee branch of the NAACP. We're joined by President Marcelin tonight for that. I appreciate his presence tonight. The branch headquarters of the Tallahassee branch of the NAACP are housed in the historic Franklin building, which is located on the property that we're seeking your permission to donate tonight. The donation of the property is part of the current lease agreement, so it's contemplated in the lease agreement, which facilitated the relocation and restoration of the building itself and provides a permanent home for the NAACP in Frenchtown. Michael Parker has worked on this item. I appreciate his support on this. There has to be creativity, of course, and he's here to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Parker?
Move staff recommendations.
Let me first say, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, wonderful. Item's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by the rest of the commission. All of those in favor? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much. We're on item number 13.04.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, 13.03. Excuse me.
Thank you, sir. This item is our update on our state and federal legislative action. At your recent annual retreat, you moved the function related to our lobbying efforts under the city manager's office. They had previously been handled in the office of the mayor. As the first day of our state legislative session approaches next week, it'll be here soon, we'd like to update you on our appropriation requests, which are our prime action as it relates to our lobbying, especially at our state level. These requests represent your continued prioritization and investment in workforce development, infrastructure, and public safety. Christian Doolin is leading our effort in legislative priorities. He's done a great job. His team has done a great job. He's joined by our legislative lobbyist here today from a utility point of view and a general legislative state point of view. We want to bring this just as a backdrop of our general efforts, and I would like Christian to give us a quick update of where we stand tonight. Christian?
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. So we're excited to bring this update to you. As Reese mentioned, we have both of our state lobbying teams here to answer any questions you might have. We've been keenly focused on appropriations in the past few weeks. Just a quick overview of what those are. We have submitted 4 appropriations for funding, and that is for the workforce development program that we're working closely with the county and the public schools on, Tempo, a resiliency discharge pipeline backup for our sewer, and training facility design funds for TPD. The status of those is tracking very well. The local legislative delegates have sponsored all of them. Representative Alexander has sponsored the 2 workforce development focused requests, and Representative Osley has has sponsored the sewer and the TPD facility design training requests. Senator Montfort has sponsored all 4 in the Senate, and they have all been filed into bills. So we're tracking well. And then just yesterday, our team, along with the city manager, the mayor at one meeting, thank you, Mayor, and our staff met with multiple chairs and vice chairs of the subcommittees that these appropriations requests will be before. So we are tripling down on our differentiated position as a municipality to be right across the street, and really trying to build, warm those connections up, and we'll continue to do so in the coming months.
Those four, I don't know if I just said this already, but those four requests amount to $3.6 million, and I can break that down if you have further questions. On the utilities front, Peebles, Smith, and Matthews, they're here. Their focus this year, as they always are, on protecting our utility systems from undue regulations. And then on the federal front, we have, as you know, Ackerman, we have met with each of you to syndicate our federal priorities as a community. And the latest update, as last week's congressional appropriation bill has moved forward, it included funds for many areas that were important for our community. CDBG, home program, full JAG funding, and transit system funding. So as we go into mid-March, where the president proposes his budget, the city is going to be advocating to continue the maximum funding for those areas that are very important for us. As I mentioned, we're here for any questions you might have, or you can accept the update, and we have our partners here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers on the update by chance?
We do not have any speakers on the side.
Excellent. Anybody? The action is simply to make a motion to accept the report, but are there any questions at all? Great. Is there a motion to accept the legislative update?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bryant, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further comment? Christian, wonderful job. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just for a moment ask Christian to recognize our lobbying team. I appreciate them being here tonight. Clearly, this time of the year heats up pretty quickly.
Yep.
They've done a great job for us, and I would love to recognize them.
Please. Sure. So we have both, so from Ron Book's team, we have Rana and Jasmine, and then from Peebles Smith Matthews, we have Ryan Matthews here. So thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for being here.
Item number 13.04, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir. This item involves an exploration of Midtown parking. There's been a lot of discussion about that. You've attended some recent meetings and had a lot of feedback on that. We're going to provide an overview. We've got a pretty lengthy presentation that I think we'll move fast in, but I think it will be informative and helpful. It will highlight issues including the estimated number of currently available parking spaces in the area, the estimated need for parking spaces if you were to maximize the zoning that's allowable, the RFP that's up for consideration, and there's some recommended actions in your agenda material as well. Laurel Harbin, who I think you know, she attended the January 28th meeting in Midtown to talk about this subject. She's with she's a senior planner in our Tallahassee-Leon County Planning Department, and she's going to walk us through the presentation and answer our questions.
I'll move through it pretty quickly. Good evening. Just to start off with, the parking issues we're talking about tonight originated with the Midtown Action Plan that was adopted in 2011. A pretty substantial stakeholder involvement process here. This was when the Midtown Working Group was initiated, and that carried through after the action plan was adopted. Some significant outcomes from the action plan included 4 highlighted goals that you'll see here related to parking, supporting local businesses, supporting urban infill and mixed-use buildings, as well as traffic safety. The parking study that was presented by staff in 2016 is summarized here. It indicates an estimated supply and demand, estimated supply being 9,911 spaces, and you can compare that to the estimated demand based on code. That's the reason there's a range. This parking study area is within the multimodal transportation district overlay boundary, which means there's a range of parking options. Developers can reduce the amount of parking required. So that's why the supply is within that range. Additional considerations about how the district is evolving in positive ways that also happen to reduce parking. For example, redevelopment in the multimodal district allows developers to reduce surface lots, but requires them to orient the buildings towards the street and make them more pedestrian-friendly, add street trees, widen sidewalks, etc. In addition, there are opportunities for surface lots to be retrofitted to be more positive in the public realm. Here's an example from a local business that reached out to the city staff to find a solution that met code but also improved the public realm. Finally, as buildings change ownership in this district, they may also change use, such as the TMH building, which is now a proposed mixed-use building. The impact on parking is that the after-hours parking spots that are used by other businesses may no longer be available because that mixed use is an 18-hour activity location now. So we're looking at increased pressure on businesses and potential impacts on residential streets. So the City Commission authorized staff in 2016 to issue this RFP. It was released in 2018. We received 2 proposals. At the time the RFP was issued, staff met with 2 stakeholder groups, residents as well as merchants. And one of the things that came out of those stakeholder meetings was that residents were not in favor of any parking structure on Gadsden, even though it's commercial zone, so staff ruled that out for consideration. No parking structures considered there. The 2 responses that were received are indicated here. They differ in 3 primary ways, the first being location. One is central to the district. The other one's down at the point where Thomasville meets Monroe Street. They also vary in size. The one in the middle of the district, Proposal 1, offers 331 spaces. The one at the point, 550, 430 of which could be made public. Finally, from a financial perspective, an important consideration is that Proposal 1 is not anticipated to require tax dollars to pay for the structure as proposed. It's anticipated to be funded entirely by the users of the structure, where in contrast, the second proposal would absolutely require tax revenue to fund as proposed, unless staff is authorized to go back and negotiate better financial terms. After the proposals were received, there was some concern from citizens, and the commission directed staff to hold the community meeting that was held January 28th. There was some presentation of proposals received. For example, the Fifth Avenue garage, the 4-story commercial liner uses, the impact that a step back would have, and also just indicating that proposal actually meets requirements as they are today, wouldn't require any deviations. A 3D rendering was provided, but I do want to clarify that this is not representative of what an actual garage would look like. Design negotiations are part of the process. In addition, the 3D model would need to meet the specifications of the site plan, which are much more design friendly. And also the vendors that applied are capable of doing that sort of thing. You can see here a local example and a national example where the parking structures are shielded by mixed uses and have more fenestration, voids, positive spaces, variety of materials, et cetera. So that's something that city staff would work towards. Staff took away 3 primary outcomes from this community meeting that are relevant today. The first is we recognize the need to bring the Midtown Working Group back together. The second was to take a deeper look into the parking supply and demand that's there. And third, we realize we need to look at alternatives. So you'll see those in the potential actions. So the working group was facilitated by staff to reconvene on February 11th. At the close of that meeting, we did a summary. We felt there's some consensus about a few things. For example, that the parking issue needed to be addressed, and that was very real and felt by merchants today. Following the meeting, we received different responses from members of the group. There appear to be 2 different sides. One group in support of the Fifth Avenue garage being central to the district, and the other group not wanting a structure at all, or if they want one closer to Monroe Street. So some of those ideas were difficult to reconcile, but there's a variety of viewpoints out there. So the other thing staff did was look at a more precise parking count. We took the boundary from the RFP area that you see here and digitized each public and private parking spot that's paved within the entire district. It totals 3,647 spaces. Only 283 of those are public, and actually only 91 of those spaces are marked paved spots that are public. And then we looked at who was using these spots and for what businesses. We pulled the records from the Consolidated Dispatch Agency and found that there are 313 businesses within this boundary. And then also looking at estimated need, this is based on code, the range, 3 to 6 spaces per every 1,000 square feet. At over 1 million square feet of non-residential uses within this boundary you see on the screen, the estimated need for parking is between 3,000 and 6,300 spaces. So you can see that the estimated supply is much on the lower end, which as planners indicates that there really is a problem today. It kind of reinforces what we heard some of the merchants say, but also looking forward, which as planners do, look 20, 30 years ahead. How can we sustain the vitality of the district? So alternatives that we heard, look at Monroe Street. You'll see that the second-ranked proposal is actually on North Monroe Street. That's why it's one of your options. Here's a rendering of what the second proposal would look like. On the left side of the screen, you'll see a mixed-use commercial building at the point of Thomasville and Monroe. On the right side is the attached garage structure. Other alternatives included looking at city-owned parcels. Here's the one within this boundary. It's the current TPD site. Staff has looked at this previously and identified that, yes, there is an opportunity to provide parking here. The best solution we'd recommend is incorporating that parking into any redevelopment that comes as that space becomes available. So as a long-term solution, integrating public parking as part of that redevelopment process. We also looked at what the area was that these potential garages could provide parking relief on. It looks like they do overlap with some of the neighborhood streets and may potentially relieve some of the parking nuisance that was brought up back in 2010, as well as serve the businesses in yellow here within that district, the red circle being the walking distance, a 5-minute walk under the best weather conditions where someone would walk. So one more thing we looked at was not just parking supply, but how is parking affecting development in this area? The map you see here reflects 2 years of development opportunities that were missed or parking solutions that weren't able to be solved by people who came to staff to try to find solutions. So these are missed opportunities for reinvestment in the district. Now, not necessarily bad if 1 or 2 parcels that happens to, but as we're looking at a plateau here, if this is the trend hitting over a 2-year period, what we don't want to happen is the value of those parcels to decline, and then an outside developer comes in, buys multiple parcels, and develops them as one. That's when we get a really large-scale development that's more likely to be incompatible with the unique characters that are already there. But we do think there's opportunities to keep what's there, but also build upon it. There's some places where reinvestment is really an opportunity. And finally, that leaves us with options, and we're here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Okay, how many public speakers do we have?
About 20.
About 20. Okay, I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm going to see if we can start narrowing this down before we have public speaking. And I'm going to look down here because I think we all have a feeling what the public speakers are going to speak on. So I'm looking at my colleagues to say, when it comes to the parking structures that are being proposed, both at 5th and Thomasville Road and then at the Point, my question is, first and foremost, at 5th and Thomasville Road, is there an appetite to have a conversation about that proposal as proposed?
I'll move to reject all bids.
Okay, we're not taking motions right now until after we have public comment, Commissioner. And out of difference to everybody, I'm just asking so that the public has an idea of what we're thinking about, okay? Now, so what I'm seeing is there's no appetite for 5th and Thomasville Road for a parking garage. Okay, all right. Everybody understand that? Everybody see where we're headed? Now, the Point, down where Thomasville Road and Monroe Street come. There is a private developer who is moving forward with a development, okay? And the question is, does the city get involved with negotiating public parking at that facility? It is not a question of whether that development will be developed or not. This is a private development. Do we get involved with the the public parking aspects of it? Is there an appetite for that proposal as it was presented to us to have that conversation of the public parking? Okay, so there is an appetite to talk about the Point in our involvement as the city of Tallahassee, but there is not appetite to have the conversation at Thomasville Road and 5th. Okay, so we're kind of laying the groundwork so that the public has an opportunity to speak basically on what we're thinking about. The proposed garage at 5th and Thomasville Road, is safe to say, is not going to be considered tonight, okay? With that, Mr. Cook will turn it over. Folks, I'm going to ask for, as always, civility and professionalism. Let's try to keep it to 3 minutes. We do have a lot of people that want to speak on this issue. Your name and address for the record when you approach. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. The first speaker is John Wallace, to be followed by Carrie Litherland.
Okay. Good evening.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is John Wallace, and I reside at 412 East Georgia Street, which is in Lafayette Park. And I represented my neighborhood in the original Midtown Working Group that developed the Midtown Action Plan that we have today. And it was a terrific experience to participate in a collaboration of highly invested residential and commercial stakeholders, crafting a plan that not only clarified a vision for the future of Midtown, but also helped implement the improvements in the Midtown District that you see today. And some of those improvements included the signalized pedestrian crossings at Thomasville Road, the other one at Gadsden Street, and the development of the Fifth Avenue Plaza with its signature gas lightings, and much more. And our vision of Midtown included incremental development that built on the success of the current Midtown Business District. Locally owned businesses have been housed in primary refurbished buildings that are consistent with the current architectural style and appeal of the district, keeping easy access and walkability as well as preserving historical context to maintain the character and charm of Midtown. And the spirit of the open communication and collaboration of the past Midtown Working Group left such an impression on me that a few days after staff's workshop at the Board of Realtors on the proposed parking solutions, I called some of my friends in the Midtown business community to see if they would get the working group back together to start an open and constructive dialogue on the parking problems in Midtown, and also to implement more of the ideas in the Midtown Action Plan. And from my conversations with the business community, it seems their members were also thinking along the same lines. So now, thanks to you, the commission, staff, and the concerns of the business and residential stakeholders in Midtown, the band is back together. While we all appreciate getting the working group back together, staff's summary of our initial meeting was troubling because there was no mention of alternative solutions, some of which are in the original action plan that we adopted in 2011. The neighborhood representatives concur that a thorough professional parking study is necessary, but until it is completed and there is an objective analysis of need, cost, traffic circulation, and effect on pedestrians, it is premature to negotiate with property owners in the district. A significant portion of the need may be met by quicker and cheaper approaches. To be clear, we are not necessarily opposed to a parking garage, but simply think moving forward with negotiations prior to a parking study is putting the cart before the horse.
You got about 20 seconds.
To move forward with negotiations with little to no consideration of an adoptive and effective action plan seems short-sighted and a waste of the Midtown Working Group's collective efforts. So we would ask that the Commission direct staff to hire an independent outside parking expert before we talk about investing up to $30 million in a parking garage, and that you give the working group time to use this information to identify solutions for everyone in order to keep Midtown vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Carrie Litherland, and then Rochelle McClure. I neglected to mention a moment ago that each speaker, you have a light in front of you there that will turn from green to yellow when you have about 30 seconds remaining.
Ms. Litherland, good to see you.
Hello. Carrie Litherland, 1336 Jackson Street, 32303. Can I do that? Good afternoon, Commissioners. First, I want to thank you all for meeting with the neighborhood groups and all of the businesses on this issue to make sure that we were all heard. I know this commission is ready and already making great strides to move forward with public trust and move us forward into the future in a positive direction. So thank you. In the last few years, I have heard each of you speak individually about Tallahassee's need to move into the future and not just plan 5 years down the road, but 10, 15, 20 years down the road. As a lifelong resident, I am excited to see the innovative, inclusive, and long-lasting ideas that this commission has come up with to solve the many problems facing Tallahassee. That is why I am asking you to direct staff to reject all bids, rescind the RFP, and seek additional parking and transportation strategies that are in line with the city's potential clean energy plan and strategic long-range plans. As laid out in the agenda item, there are many solutions to tackling the parking more than just the archaic and outdated parking garage. Growing competitive cities are moving further and further away from parking garages. One reason is the space the cars themselves occupy. Too much of our real estate could be used to park the vehicles. It seems rather inefficient and wasteful when this land could be devoted to more local businesses and housing. Ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft already hint at a world in which cars are utilized more efficiently and take up less room for storage. This world no longer seems so far away. The next generation won't be driving cars. Recent reports argue that the era of private car ownership may peak within a decade as new networks of shared, electric, and possibly autonomous vehicles become cheaper. Our focus should be on how do we move residents and visitors without the vehicles, like the ones who are stuck renting a car during session, or the tech giant that's coming into town, or the college graduate that uses Lyft and doesn't even have a license. Many cities have explored other options, such as different forms of transportations, like a trolley, car, bike, moped sharing services, parking apps, parking monitor systems like sensors and other technology that's out there. A hold harmless agreement many cities have used. As staff pointed out, there are 3,647 spots that are there, and that would be a much cheaper option than $30 million into a parking garage. While the Midtown Working Group and the neighborhood associations are not necessarily against any parking garage, there are so many other options to successfully solve this parking issue that I wonder, why are we limiting ourselves to only looking at a garage? The options are endless, and it is time Tallahassee deploy innovative solutions instead of trying the same old, outdated solutions over and over again with the same sleepy town result. For these reasons, I am asking you to reject subsidizing any garage in Midtown, explore alternatives, better serving, innovative solutions that are complementary to the clean energy plan and the future we all see of a pedestrian-friendly Midtown district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rochelle McClure, and then Sam Kimmelman.
Hi, that was my presentation that was up. Yeah, and I don't know how to ding to the next slide. Commissioners, mayor, staff, thank you so much for listening to us, for taking the time to meet with us again and again, and for paying attention to the data nerds of the world. My first slide, that was just up.
Could you give us your name and address?
Oh, sorry, Rochelle McClure, 427 McDaniel Street.
Thank you.
So my first slide, that was up, I'm sure which will come back up again. As a lot of us do, travel around through Tallahassee by eating. I was sitting at the Grove Market thinking how many parking spaces are in this brand new facility that they built. So there are 14 retail spaces and offices currently filled. There's more spaces to be filled there, but current businesses that are there, 16 with 2 restaurants. And if you count the parking spaces in the brand new retail facility outside of the multimodal transportation district, there are 15 parking spaces per business. Slide 2. In Midtown retail, they're just looking at Waterworks and the Midtown Reader, adding up those parking spaces. There are about 25 spaces per business. That does not include the on-street parking that's currently available on 5th, the on-street parking that's currently available on Beard and Gadsden and the surrounding area. So more parking spaces right now in Midtown retail than the private market is developing. When I was just Googled Tallahassee parking garages, because I was living in Boston for a couple of years and came back and said, what's the private market doing? The private market, this was something that was proposed to be built. I don't know where it stands, but they were going to have 400 parking spaces for almost 350,000 square feet of retail. So a 260-room hotel, 24 condos, 70,000 square feet of office space, and 3 restaurants. And then if we look at, when we assess real estate markets in businesses, we typically look at the downtown area and say, what's the private market doing? Because that is where you can get Tier 1 real estate pricing. And so Tier 1 real estate pricing is going to be the highest rent per square foot. And our downtown Tallahassee urban core is building 5 stories. So I just ask with these numbers that we take a step back and assess, do we need 350,000 square feet of real estate space? Let's take a look at what the private market's doing. Should taxpayers be asked to put in parking that could significantly alter one of the most successful business districts in the city? So that's all my data. Thank you.
The next speaker is Sam Kimmelman, and then Thomas Clark.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Kimmelman. I reside at 831 Washington Street within Lafayette Park. I'm a CPA for over 25 years. For the past 22 years, I worked at a local economic consulting firm headquartered in Tallahassee. Among my responsibilities, I negotiated facility leases in our remote offices, including leases in 6 cities across the United States. With each of these, we separately negotiated the on-site parking for our employees, ranging in costs from $65 to $450 per month. One of the things I learned over the years was parking costs are not fixed, uniform, and very much negotiable. The publicly stated rate varied greatly tenant by tenant and within each garage. Around 5 weeks ago, I was asked by the Neighborhood Association to review the financial assumptions and pro forma schedules prepared by the city in response to the 2 RFPs received. I presented my findings at the Neighborhood Town Hall meeting on January 28th. Following that meeting, I was asked by city staff to meet to discuss the methodology I used in reviewing the city's financial assumptions and pro forma schedules, and I met with city staff on February 6th. I believe the city staff and I are all agreed that the underlying revenue assumptions for the monthly parking rate, transient parking rate, and event parking rates did not align with or were supported by the actual rates the city was collecting in other city-owned garages. As such, the annual revenues, associated break-even analysis, and the net operating income projections were overstated. I understand the city has also relied on other data from private garages in Tallahassee, along with garages in other cities. I cannot validate the accuracy or relevancy of that information. Although we disagreed on the calculation of the overall number and availability of transient parkers, we did agree on the need for an external parking expert to evaluate and survey the community to identify the overall needs around parking and to validate the market rates. As it stands today, the same revenue assumptions were used on both sets of proposals and associated pro forma schedules. A $105 monthly parking rate, a $5 transient parking rate, and a $20 event parking rate were used, and each are aggressively priced. They're not corroborated with the other comparable locations and provide a misleading financial projection. In both parking garage scenarios, a restatement of these rates to a market-based rate of $90 for monthly parking, $15 for event parking, and finally $3 or $3.50 per transient parking rate impacts and reduces the overall revenues, cash flows, net operating income, and internal rates of return calculations. For the Monroe and Thomasville garage, using the 25-year proposal, these modest adjustments reduce the net operating income from $11.4 million to a loss of $6.5 million, and the internal rate of return from 6.6% to a negative 3.9% rate of return. I encourage the Commission and staff to evaluate the budget projections to determine if there is a demand for parking, both business and retail, and if the proposed pricing is consistent with what the public is willing to pay. Otherwise, the city and taxpayers will be subsidizing these parking spots for many years to come.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really do appreciate you coming out.
Next speaker is Thomas Clark. After Mr. Clark will be John Turner.
Jim, don't forget to give 2.5 minute warning.
I'm Tom Clark, 1515 Payne Street, in the Midtown neighborhood behind Whole Foods. Thank you, commissioners and city staff, for the work you've done on this and other transportation issues. I want to suggest that within the multimodal transportation district, our response to car problems should not be limited to car solutions. The reason for the multimodal district is to encourage other modes of transportation. Just as we aim for mixed uses, we should aim for mixed solutions. Midtown's need for parking is a moving target among other moving parts, including ride-share services, getting to Midtown businesses on foot, bicycle, carpool, or bus, and ready access to existing parking through hold harmless agreements, improved signage, smart parking apps, and even simple maps. There are good reasons that parking code requirements are lower within the multimodal transportation district than suburban locales. We should expect that parking demand may exceed code. That is, after all, a sure sign of success. And we should expect of ourselves that we respond with multimodal solutions as individual citizens and in our collective action through government. The policy formation and direction update for today's meeting refers to the number of parking spaces that are required to sustain the businesses of Midtown. Do we know the number of bicycle boulevards, protected bike lanes, and bike racks required to sustain these businesses? Have we exhausted reasonable efforts to make existing parking readily available, to add smaller increments of on-street and off-street parking, to limit demand by incentivizing carpools? What were these efforts? My understanding is that the multimodal transportation district is not a formula to prevent growing pains, but goals we set to resolve these tensions in new ways. We seek a mix of ways to get around because we know that more of the same will inevitably make things different in ways we do not anticipate and do not want. A large parking garage is more of the same. Let's consider this after robust multimodal efforts. I urge that we respond with a mix of improvements in our active and shared mobility, bike, pedestrian, and bus carpool, and proportionate incremental car changes that include ready access to existing parking and that is distributed throughout Midtown.
You're at 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Mixed, proportionate, and distributed. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Turner. He'll be followed by Kathy McGuire.
Hey, Mr. Turner.
Evening. Thank you for your time and consideration. John Turner. I live at 1423 North Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Levy Park. The Midtown Commercial Center is surrounded by established historic neighborhoods representing Tallahassee's first suburban growth. It is this mix of 20th century styles and modest scale that helps create the eclectic sense of place identified in the 2011 Midtown Action Plan and is part of what binds these surrounding neighborhoods and the commercial area together. The city's 2016 RFP for structured parking solutions has also brought together the community by alarming a cross-section of neighbors in opposition to what they see as incompatible development within Midtown. While this RFP was an outgrowth of studies and trends nearly 10 years ago, the economy, technology, and city growth patterns have changed since then. I believe the right decision before the Commission is to abandon and vote down the RFP seeking a multi-use, multi-story garage structure and conduct a current in-depth professional parking assessment as suggested at the recently reconvened Midtown Working Group, of which I'm a member. The city's legal and risk management teams have indicated that hold harmless agreements with business owners are a non-starter, yet recently, property owners have themselves initiated pay-to-park lot sharing using mobile apps, thus taking advantage of otherwise underutilized parking in the evening. Might this be a viable alternative to explore the effectiveness and desirability of paid parking in the district before investing tens of millions of public dollars in a project that no private developer considers economically viable? Similarly, the Capital Region Transportation Planning Agency recently completed Phase 1 of its Midtown traffic study and findings, and it's set to begin Phase 2 this spring, which is the public outreach component. Like Mayor Daley's vision of acquiring Thomasville Road from the state to create a pedestrian mall, some of the CRTPA suggestions have a direct bearing on Midtown traffic flow and multimodal planning, which would affect and be affected by moving forward on either of the two garage proposals submitted in the previous Commission's RFP. As a 30-year resident of Levy Park, I've been heartened by the vibrancy of Midtown businesses and neighborhoods and want sensitive and sensible improvement, both east and west of Monroe Street, that continue to bind Tallahassee Midtown businesses and neighborhoods and make the area accessible to all without compromising that very sense of place that makes it a destination for Midtown residents and visitors alike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy McGuire is next, and then Randy Dinker.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mayor Daley, we appreciate all the time that you have spent with us discussing this issue. My name is Kathy McGuire, and I live at 1101 Pine Street. I urge you to approve a full-fledged, comprehensive parking study before committing millions of dollars to parking garages. You may wonder why we're asking for this study when we've heard several references to an earlier study by staff. But the 2016 work by staff was very limited. As they've said, the numbers, for example, of parking spaces are based on estimates. But more importantly, they did not address other kinds of parking solutions, only parking garages and structures. The reason we need a full-fledged parking study now is to seriously explore those other solutions and to get basic facts that we still don't have, facts that I think you would probably want to know before you commit $11 to $30 million into concrete. So information that I feel we still need includes, 1, an actual count of how many public and private spaces there are in Midtown and how they're distributed through the area. 2, how long does it take to find a parking place? Would better signage, for example, help this parking problem? 3, how long do typical parkers stay in various places? A 5-minute stop at the dry cleaner is obviously different than a 2-hour stop for a meal, and that difference obviously affects how many spaces we need. 4, what are the times of peak use and locations of peak use? A law office's peak time and number of clients is probably different than that of a bar, and we can use this information to find out how many spaces could potentially be shared. 5, where do the customers park and where do the employees park? Is it possible that we could create a parking space more for employees and thereby free up some of the most precious in front of the door spaces for customers, thereby helping the merchants? 6, how are the lots laid out? I've seen other parking studies that changed the design, the parking stripes in a lot, and thereby were able to change the volume of cars in a moderate-sized lot by adding 20 spaces just by moving the lines around.
You're at 2.5 minutes.
How far away from destinations do people park? Maybe Blueprint will make it so that people are happy to walk farther. And finally, what is the actual demand? I urge you to hire a parking expert to answer these key questions. Please reject the bids and wait to negotiate on property until we find out more exactly what we need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Dinker is the next speaker, and then we'll hear from Regan Jager.
Thank you. My name is Randy Dinker. I'm at 552 East Georgia. And good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. Everyone in this room cares about Midtown. If we didn't, we wouldn't be here. And we all want the best solution. That's a given. It's also a given that in order to make the smartest decisions, you have to have good data to rely on. But the data has to come first, then the analysis of the data, and then the decision making. And you can't reverse that order. It's like buying a new car, and then after you've already bought the car, taking a look and seeing what does Consumer Reports say about this car. And as you've heard tonight, all of the Midtown neighborhoods are unanimous in their belief that we don't currently have enough data to make a smart decision about parking options. And the neighborhoods are not against a parking garage per se, but we're asking you, before you commit tax dollars and explore it further, let's do a comprehensive study to see what other options exist to solve the parking issues to the satisfaction of both the businesses and the neighborhoods. We feel a parking garage should be the last resort, not the starting place. So let me wrap up what we're asking for. And it isn't really listed as one of your staff options. It's kind of a hybrid of options. Number one, we want you to rescind the RFP and reject both bids. Number two, we'd like the commission to hire a parking specialist to do a full-fledged comprehensive study that will establish reasonable parking needs and identify alternatives and options. Let's take a look and see how are other cities around the world and around the U.S. handling parking issues creatively and cost-effectively. Maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe the wheel is already out there. We would also like assurances that the Midtown Working Group will be a full partner and an integral part of the process in all aspects of development, including helping to pick the experts, being kept in the loop throughout, having the ability to ask questions and make suggestions, and most importantly, being able to weigh in on the committee's preferred options when the study is completed. And that's our vision of inclusiveness and community participation and working together to find solutions that work for the residents and for the businesses. I want to tell you a little bit about a study that, a survey that we did after the town hall meeting.
That's 2.5 minutes.
My colleagues and I decided to poll the Midtown businesses to get a sense of what they wanted, and here's what we found. We were able to contact approximately 50 Midtown merchants. We found out that only a small number of businesses immediately on Thomasville Road supported the garage. Even those closest to the garage were not unanimous. The vast majority of the merchants said it wouldn't help their businesses at all. They were shocked at the price of the garage. They felt that money could be used better used in Midtown. We found one restaurant owner on Thomasville who didn't know that the parking garage wasn't going to be free to the public, and
Randy, thank you very much. Really do appreciate you coming out this evening.
Okay, I'm sorry I ran over.
Time for everybody to speak.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
thank
may
you.
I just ask for people to stand up if you oppose the pursuit
Randy,
of a
thank
parking
you.
garage.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next speaker will be Regan Jager, and then John Harrington.
Hey,
How you
everybody.
doing?
How y'all doing? I'm going to keep it quick because everything has been said and then said again in different ways, and it's been fascinating and interesting, and I hope you think so too. I too
Could
would.
you start with your name and address for us?
Oh, Regan Jager, 1460 Grape Street.
Thank you.
Also, like you to rescind the RFPs and reject both bids. We need a data-driven study to make these decisions. cart before the horse. We've heard all this, but, you know, we don't want to be rushing into something when the city's own numbers show that there are parking spots available. They are not distributed in such a way that they're being utilized. There are roam towing signs all over Midtown that are preventing people from parking in certain lots in the evenings. And we know that there's arrangements that can be made. I talked to a restaurant owner in Midtown who has a arrangement with an office building that he can't advertise, but he lets his customers know that, you know, yeah, you can park over there and you're not going to get towed. It just seems like the city, Midtown merchants, the ones that I talk to, want the money kept in Midtown. They see a lot of love going to other areas. Competition is, you know, is a huge part of business leveling off in some places over the last several years. There's the blight, you know, the ugliness on Monroe Street, the sidewalks, which I walk constantly with my dogs, and to get around Midtown myself, are in poor shape in Midtown and on Thomasville Road. And I understand that there's an issue with not having a sidewalk because of county, city, state ownership of roads on Gadsden. There's like a no man's land behind Brass Tap. I understand y'all can't really do anything about that. I've been pulled up to speed on that. But there are so many improvements that can be made. And these businesses that I talk to, they want some love. They want the things that the Midtown Working Group had come up with before, you know, more festivals and murals and things that bring people in to Midtown. And they're not, you know, just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to come. And then we'd be stuck with a big old parking garage, which is, yeah, that's yesterday's news. That there's so many innovative ways to bring people, and this is a multimodal district. We want it to be pedestrian and bike friendly. So we want to bring pedestrians in, right? So even though the big development at the Point, yes, that puts something more on the edge of Midtown and
You have 30 seconds remaining.
location, you know, seems better. It's another monolith. It's gigantic, and we don't know moving forward that that's going to solve any of the problems, but it will severely diminish and destroy a sense of place and the beauty and the character that is Midtown, that so many people move there and come there to appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is John Harrington, and then Steve Lightman.
Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm John Harrington, 1101 Washington Court. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. Thank you all. And thank you to everyone that spoke before me for putting me back in middle school, completing my homework on the day that it's due. I'll keep my comments brief. I don't believe there's a need for any parking structure in Midtown. I believe that there is nearly enough parking in Midtown and that there is certainly enough traffic already. While it's clear that there are sometimes challenges related to parking in Midtown, I don't believe a structure such as those proposed provide enough benefit to the community to justify their construction. I believe the construction of such a structure would be an eyesore and would exist in stark contrast to the modest and relaxed atmosphere that Midtown is known for. I believe that the traffic issue on Thomasville Road will only be made worse by the subsidization and construction of this parking garage. Thomasville Road already has traffic flow issues throughout the day, and they would be exacerbated by the increased vehicular traffic upon its completion, which is to say nothing about the disruption that the construction itself would cause. I believe that the construction of such a parking garage sends the wrong message with regards to climate change. We need to be encouraging the use of public transportation and other readily available transportation services, not encouraging the parking of more vehicles. I believe that we must reject all bids because we as a community deserve a more comprehensive study and more creative, forward-thinking proposals that would benefit all of us that patronize and love Midtown and want to see it grow and progress without losing sight of what has made it such a special part of Tallahassee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Lightman, and then Faye Gibson.
Hello, I'm Steve Lightman. I live at 522 East Georgia in Lafayette Park neighborhood. And I just wanted to quickly caution the commission about the idea of the public-private partnership? Because I work in water and large water projects, and my experience is that more often than not, such partnerships could be called commonizing the cost and privatizing the profit. And I think when you enter into a partnership, I caution the commission to be careful that what they're getting is equal risk and equal profit on both sides, and it's a real partnership, not a partnership where one person is using the other, or a partnership in name only. And then I would also like to make a suggestion that when you're looking to hire an expert to come in, that you also consider looking in Tallahassee. We have a planning school, an engineering school, and an architecture school. And I'm sure that we could get a lot less costly, at least to start on the process, by utilizing resources that are right inside of Tallahassee. Thank you.
Faye Gibson is the next speaker, and then Roy Blondeau.
Good afternoon. I'm Faye Gibson. I live at 625 McDaniel Street. And I'm so happy to see some friends up on the commission. I also thank you, Commissioner Matlow and Commissioner Bryant and Commissioner Richardson, for coming to the January meeting that we had, where the staff did a great job of presenting their information.
I was there.
To the planning. Were you there as well?
I was.
Thank you so much. It was good to have you present and to have you here. And I think that as you were there, you heard the passion that we who live in the neighborhood have, number one, for our neighborhood, but also for the businesses in our neighborhood. We love Midtown. We love the fact that we can walk back and forth to the places that we need to go. It's what part of the charm of being there is that, and we want to support our businesses. We just don't believe that this particular parking garage is the way to do it. The answers that we need, I don't think have been fully explored. I think that there are some other ways that we can go about doing what needs to be accomplished. I think that some of the things that have already been mentioned, I'm not going to go through them again. My suggestion would be to not approve this RFP, to look at a different and a more constructive way to do it. Two of the reasons that I think have not been brought up that I'd like to mention to you is that any of these garages that are going to be constructed are going to take a while to be constructed. And as we heard at that meeting, the businesses that are concerned right now about parking are concerned about an immediate need. What we heard from some of the businesses is that if they do not have parking within the next year, that they may be shutting their doors. A parking garage is not going to be completed within a year. We need to find some answers for our business leaders that are quicker than that. And I think that that would be some of the hold harmless and some of the other things that have been discussed. The second thing I would like to say is, as someone who lives in Midtown and who drives that intersection on Thomasville Road, and I turn on North Monroe, on Calhoun Street, that intersection already is dangerous enough for us to make that turn. To be able to add parking garage in there with additional traffic, to me, is asking for trouble. I have not seen the plans for this parking garage. At the January meeting, primarily what was discussed was the Fifth Avenue parking garage. So I don't know fully what the one at Thomasville Road and Monroe Street will bring to us, and I trust that our planners have looked at that and considered what that's going to do to our traffic flow. But as someone who lives there and uses those streets, this doesn't sound like the best use of our resources. I'd like you to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roy Blondeau, to be followed by Wendy Gray.
Excellent. We'll see you on the next item.
Very good. Then Wendy Gray, and the following speaker will be Debbie Lightsey.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Wendy Gray, and I reside at 1047 Myers Park Drive. I am recommending that the City Commission approve Option 4, reject all bids for Midtown parking garage, and Option 6, provide staff alternative direction. The direction is to ask the Midtown Working Group to study the parking issue and bring you recommended solutions. I base this recommendation on my experience as a former Tallahassee-Leon County Planning Director. During my tenure, the city undertook both the Blairstone Road Extension Corridor Study and the Gaines Street Revitalization Plan. Although now generally considered to be successful projects, people tend to forget or may not even know that these were initially extremely controversial projects. The results of the studies on these projects were accepted by the public, even if everyone did not fully support them, because the stakeholders were meaningfully involved in the analysis that led to the solutions. Much like the Gain Street project, the Planning Department has established a work group comprised of different interests who are very familiar with the study area and are willing to work together to come up with solutions. As you've heard, the Midtown Working Group has now been reconvened. They should be given time to review the parking situation and bring you their recommendations. Additionally, I recommend that the working group be provided with the professional support they may need to accomplish this task, and that the Commission review the membership of the group to ensure that all potentially affected interests, such as Monroe Street property owners and business owners, are included. Our experience here in Tallahassee shows that we do not need to settle for a compromise that pleases no one. We can find a solution that the community can support, or at the very least, accept. Thank you.
Commissioner Lightsey, good to see you.
She'll be followed by Ellery Sedgwick.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Lightsey, 2340 Cypress Cove Drive, Tallahassee. I've read the staff recommendations like I've done millions of other staff recommendations through the years, but I can't make it work logically in my mind that staff is recommending an independent parking study to determine if there is a need for more parking, and if so, how many spaces, and listing the alternative means for providing them. And at the same time, staff is recommending that you negotiate with Midtown property owners for the site to build a parking garage. That makes no sense to me. They appear to be mutually exclusive. Secondly, I've been watching this project as it continues along. I can't understand what is driving it in a particular direction. No matter what information is forthcoming about cost, parking spaces, massing, no matter what comes forward, you continue to be pushed to build a garage. I heard staff say tonight that you need to plan for the maximum build-out density. That's not really good practice. You never get maximum build-out density as per the zoning code. It doesn't happen. And that would be mostly 5-story buildings along that street, which I think is not a compatible or desirable outcome. Another way to approach this is to ask yourselves what I suggest you ask yourself on every single big, costly project that comes before you as a commission. Is this project really in the general public interest? Always ask that question. Don't make the assumption that because a project makes it to your desk, it has met that test. As you will notice as you continue along, some projects develop a life of their own. And finally, the price tag. Lots of projects could be beneficial, but can we afford them? Is this the highest priority to warrant spending that level of public money? Ask yourself that every single time. Do the revenue calculations dependably have a positive result? I assume you're bonding this project, which will cost somewhere between $14 and $30 million, depending on what you're looking at. But remember, in good times and bad, debt service is due. There's serious questions about the numbers you are using on these garages. And we're in boom times now. If the economy goes downhill, will the revenues numbers continue to work? Or is this garage going to operate in the red and be a drain on scarce general government dollars?
You have about 30 seconds.
I would suggest that you have good answers to all these questions before you proceed, and I don't think you do yet. And please, please, whatever you do, address the immediate needs of the businesses in the district. We are not against providing them proper parking arrangements. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ellery Sedgwick, and then we'll hear from Brian Lupiani.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellery Sedgwick. I live at 530 McDaniel Street. I really just wanted to make 2 points. I hope they'll be quick. The first is really procedural. I think that this process had a great start in 2011 with the working group and the Midtown Action Plan that came out of that. That plan identified certain issues with regard to parking, and it provided three kind of next action steps to work towards solutions to those parking issues. One was an intensive study of parking needs and potential solutions. The other was specifically analyzing a hold harmless agreement that the city might enter into to allow businesses to flexibly share existing parking. And number three was to develop a comprehensive parking plan for the district as a whole. But after 2011, I think we lost our way, and there really wasn't any action on this until 2015, 2016, when a developer came to the city and proposed a garage, and essentially was looking to partner with the city on a garage. Prior to that point, there had been no discussion of a garage, so there was certainly no public input on the idea of a garage. After that point, I think discussions between the developer and the city progressed, and eventually there was this RFP. Finally, just before the RFP issued, there was a second public meeting. And at that meeting, the community was allowed to share a number of concerns, but there was fundamentally no change in the RFP that was issued. After that RFP, which we see the results of here, there again was a period of very little public input until the new commission came on board and directed staff to provide the community with another opportunity for input, and we certainly thank you for that. And that meeting, again, was very constructive. We brought disparate members of the community together and identified some problems and talked about some potential solutions. And I think that was another good starting point, but we can't end there. And if you vote to proceed with this RFP tonight, to further explore this garage issue or garage idea, it would really be an endpoint of sorts. The second point I'd like to make is more substantive, and it regards this second proposal that's up for your vote tonight.
You're at 2.5 minutes.
And that is that it's not a garage in isolation. So you're not considering spending potentially $30 million on 430 spaces, which is bad enough. I didn't do the math. I should have. It's probably $75,000, $80,000 a space. But once you consider the 90,000 square feet of development that would go along with this garage, you're talking about spending $30 million on 10 public spaces.
Thank you very much for
I don't think that makes sense. Thanks
Certainly
very much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Brian Lupiani is next, and then Peter Rosaloff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'd like to start off by thanking you and your predecessors and staff, and of course the members of the community that have put so much effort and time into this issue. If I could, I'd like to kind of finish up what Ms. Denker started and ask people to stand up if they're opposed to both of these parking garages in concept, if you're here to oppose them. Thank you. On my card, I said that I was supporting, sorry, let me check my note here. I was
supporting 1 and 5.
Supporting 1 and 5 and opposing 3. And that's still the case, although in addition to 5, when I look at this a little closer, I'd also agree with Ms. Denker that you should go with 6, which is study more than parking. You know, one of the things about this is, as someone else had mentioned, it's a multimodal district, but we only seem to be talking about one mode, cars. And we need to look at this from all possible angles. One of the things I'd like to say about the study is that one thing that could start off being studied is if I'm not mistaken, there is a current paid parking lot directly across from Waterworks and Midtown Reader in exactly part of the parcel that this garage that I realize you've rejected, but right where it would sit. This is a surface lot. Nobody has to worry about security of being in a parking garage. They don't have to drive up a ramp. They're all metered spaces, and I haven't monitored it or anything like that. I don't know what the answer is, but I would be curious to see how much that lot is used, and that would give you some indication of how much demand there is for parking right in the heart of Midtown let alone downhill at the intersection with Thomasville and Monroe. You know, when people were opposing the original proposal there at Thomasville and Fifth, one of the things that was suggested was a parking garage on Monroe Street, and we kept getting this blowback of, well, it's too far away. People aren't going to want to do that in the summertime. Now now the proposal is to have this parking garage twice as far away, where people would have to walk uphill both directions. And I really don't think that's going to fly. And also, again, as has been mentioned, this is a lot of money, even if that development is going to go through, to put in up to $30 million, and it may go beyond that for that number of spaces. And let's just take this slow and study it and come back with a data-driven solution. Just made it.
Thank you.
Peter Russelloff, and then John Kinney.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Peter Russelloff. I live at 116 West 6th Avenue. That's going to be between Levy Park and Midtown. Oh, sorry, other way around. And first, I'd like to point out that we've had these types of developments before, parking garages with attached mid-rises. They are mostly in College Town. What this means is, what I would think is if you were to go forward and approve with and begin negotiations on this second proposal, the larger parking garage with the mid-rise, Midtown would start to resemble College Town more. And it would also pave the way for future developments of this type. We've seen what these sorts of developments have done to College Town, in particular along Gaines Street, west of around Railroad Avenue. And do we want that in Midtown? Okay. And second, I've heard mentioned that Midtown originally we're looking for incremental development. That is, we build on the successes of the current generation. And future generations after that can build on the next generation previously. We can do the same for our transportation problems. Start small. With this parking, we can have hold harmless agreements. Those could be put into effect long before any garage could be completed. And we can see their effect. If that's not enough, we can do more. Meanwhile, we can do the same for the other modes. I know many of you have mentioned multimodal, the multimodal goals before. One example that I brought up in the town hall meeting back in late January is we have a trolley. It runs a very inefficient route between Midtown and College Town. I've noticed it's very lightly used. We could use those trolleys. We already have the vehicles. We're already spending the money. We have hired the drivers. We can run a more efficient route and see if that can bring more people to Midtown Friday and Saturday evenings. I remember it also came up back in that town hall meeting. That's when parking demand is particularly high. We can explore these sorts of options. Small bike projects, that is, say, to connect Midtown more towards Cascades Park. Maybe that can help more people get to Midtown when more people want to be in Midtown, and we have...
You're at 2.5 minutes.
I'm aware. So all in all, we need to learn the lessons that we discovered from College Town, or we need to learn the lesson of College Town. And additionally, we need to consider incremental transportation solutions, multimodal ones. And with that, thank you, commissioners. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
John Kinney and then Mike Brazine.
Good evening. John Kinney, 810 Thomasville Road, where I work, live just outside of Midtown. For those of you who don't know, I, along with Steve Maddox, we're developing Midtown Point, what everybody's talking about. So I am and always have been passionate about Midtown. I started my own business in Midtown in 1998. I've never left. It is, in my opinion, the best area in Tallahassee, and it has the greatest potential. I love it so much that in 2003, I began the Midtown Merchants Association with Ed Murray, Karen and Eric Favier, for those of you who remember from Chez Pierre, as well as Phil and Julian Summers. I truly love this part of Tallahassee. I also own several commercial buildings in Midtown. 5 years ago, I purchased the Point. For those of you familiar with the Point, 810 Thomasville Road right there, I did not buy this building for its beauty. It is anything but a pretty building. I bought it because it's a gateway to Midtown. It will set the tone when we redevelop that portion for what Midtown can be. In so doing, when Steve Maddox and I began to draft ideas of what we would redevelop, we suddenly realized we would need parking. We also realized with the new MMTD model that the city had put forward, one which we love, we would need to go vertical with this parking. We didn't have enough room to do a big lot, and frankly, we didn't want a big lot. So right about the time we were submitting our plans for development, the city did their parking study in 2015 and 16. They released that study in which they found what every one of us that has been working in Midtown day in, day out knows, Midtown needs a parking garage. Without additional public parking, of which the studies have shown tonight is minimal at best, Midtown cannot reach its full potential. It dawned on Steve and I, well, if we're doing this development, and redevelopment means we're doing parking, and the city needs parking, well, then why don't we try to start a conversation with the city, see if we can do a win-win. They need parking, they can build on top of ours. Steve and I paused this development for over 2 years to engage in this conversation and to begin a dialogue to try to create a better parking garage for Midtown. We agree and support the original Midtown study. We also agree with the other merchants in Midtown.
You're at 2.5.
Thank you. Midtown needs a parking garage. So I'm not here to lobby my project tonight. Steve and I are going forward on our development. We invite both the community and the city to engage with us on a dialogue on how we can make that parking garage, whatever it may be, better. Y'all were elected to engage, and you've done that. You were also elected to lead. Support the evidence that's out there, which is a Midtown needs a parking garage, and do the right thing and get the garage.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kenny.
Next speaker is Mike Brzezin, and that's the final speaker on this item.
Save the best for last.
Do what I can.
You all have done great tonight. Thank you. I am Mike Brzezin. I live at 1401 North Randolph Circle in lovable Benton Hills. Tonight, I'm asking you to serve as extended family members to help Midtown with its growing pains. We're involved because we've watched Midtown be born and grow to the child it is today. With that perspective, I've come to see that parking isn't the problem, it's the solution. Let me explain. Midtown is growing in an economic hazard zone, in planning speak known as CU 45 zoning. That zoning allows for buildings at sizes and heights that are incompatible with the villagey feel we appreciate in Midtown today. With CU 45 zoning, we plan for Midtown to jump from child to adult, skipping adolescence. Down zoning now is next to impossible. What's the one tool we have left to best support Midtown's development? Parking. Jumping to a garage doubles down on the zoning hazard. It's too big, too soon. Midtown needs its teen years to grow more businesses, improve walkability and streetscapes, boost multimodal transit, and, when necessary, increase parking. But the changes come incrementally, letting us as adults enjoy them and letting Midtown develop its unique personality through rather low-risk successes and failures. Creating surplus parking sets Midtown up for a West Gain Street build-out, 5-story buildings, too often with empty ground floor stores, and those few businesses that can't afford to rent our franchises. We've seen the precursors of this in the 2 garage proposals, both 5-story mixed-use buildings. Let's use the tool we have left, parking, strategically, to let Midtown strengthen its best qualities: local, independent, human scale, safe, fun, and sufficiently quirky. I realize a large developer like a clueless uncle could come in under CU 45 zoning, buy a number of parcels, and build a huge mixed-use building. Still, we can use parking as a strategic tool, require mostly on-site parking, and if that means garage, then make sure we have rigorous design standards so the garage blends with the existing built environment. This developmental approach to Midtown requires watchful and loving parents. That's the Midtown Working Group. To raise a child takes partnership based on trust and compromise.
You have about 20 seconds remaining.
The Midtown Working Group, merchants, neighbors, and city planners will all need to give a little to get a lot for Midtown. Let's do what we can to boost their opportunity to succeed. Rescind the parking garage RFP, move forward on a first-class parking study, and let the Midtown Working Group know we, as extended family,
Thank you very much, Mike.
are here to help them raise Midtown to be healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I do not have any further speakers.
Excellent. Let me first make the announcement that if you are here for the 6 o'clock public hearing, we will be going directly into it after this agenda item. We're obviously going to be a little bit late, but we'll go directly into the public hearing. Okay, so we're going to start the conversation here, and I'm going to put my 2 cents in first because I want to help set the tone. I think, first and foremost, that it is wise for us not to move forward with consideration with the parking garage on 5th and Thomasville Road. I don't think that that is what's in the best interest of the community. And while I recognize Mr. Kenny here as the developer has the opportunity to move forward, and he is moving forward within the laws that we have and the zoning ordinance that we have, I do not think that the city of Tallahassee should participate in the negotiations of public parking down there at the Point. Let me be clear. I do support the redevelopment of the Point, and I am looking forward to see what he brings forward for consideration. It will not come for a vote. He is operating within the laws of Leon County, city of Tallahassee, and the state of Florida, and has the right to do so. But that's not the issue that's before us. The issue that's before us is whether the city of Tallahassee participates in formal negotiations through the RFP to bring about public parking at whatever could be a proposed facility. And I'm not in favor of moving forward with those discussions. I guess what we have heard tonight would be that we scrap the 2 RFPs and not move forward. Now, I do think that we should go forward with a more in-depth study of the Midtown area. I do disagree, though, that it should concentrate only on parking because I think that misses the point. I think we actually need to go back to the drawing board and do a complete master plan of the Midtown area because, folks, since we started in 2011, there's been a lot that's taken place. For the past 2 nights, we have spent hours on end in public town hall meetings talking about the proposed new public safety headquarters that will be built. We're trying to figure out where, and we're going through those struggles. Regardless, it will not be on 7th Avenue, right there in Midtown. There's an incredible opportunity to redevelop that piece of property at some point in time as well. By the way, these are my opinions and my reflection. I think we will be moving forward at some point somewhere with a new station. One point of conversation we haven't even talked about is the amazing opportunity to also link 3 beautiful green spaces between Lake Ella, Lafayette Park, and the Grove. Think about it. The Grove did not become a public park back in 2011 when we started, if I'm correct, when we started this whole study. That's a whole new element that needs to be taken into consideration. We need to take into consideration not only the parking in the Midtown area, but also how does it affect our senior center at the Armory? And how do we pedestrianize, and we've got a lot of good friends from Levy Park that are here, and how do we increase the pedestrianization that connects the neighborhoods? It is a multimodal transit district that we need to give more serious consideration, and I do agree if we're going to be a 21st century city that we have to take into consideration all opportunities from ride sharing all the way up and mass transit options as well. But let me throw this out here because I think we have a very unique opportunity. One of the things that we are also very concerned with, so by the way, I would be very much in favor of moving forward with a formal master plan study of the area, taking into consideration future potential land use developments, mass transit, and parking, but taking a holistic approach at what I'm calling, I guess, Midtown Central, 7th Avenue, Monroe Street, to the Point, back up Thomasville Road. However, I do want to throw something on the table for serious consideration. You know, what was brought to us was, do we build a parking garage at 5th and Thomasville? Do we not build a parking garage at 5th and Thomasville? The land's for sale. Everybody is also a little anxious from what I heard at the public meeting that we had over the Board of Realtors about what could possibly be developed there if that piece of property is sold. I think we should buy the property. I think the city of Tallahassee should buy the property that is for sale right now on the corner of 5th and Thomasville Road, and I'll tell you why. As it was mentioned earlier, from a short-term parking solution, we can ensure surface parking right there in Midtown that already currently exists. We can even go so far if we need more short-term surface parking until we do the master plan and figure out where we're going and what we're truly going to do. There's 2 facilities on those parcels that can actually be taken out. We can go through the beautification process and solve short-term surface parking needs for the business community in Midtown without going up. At the same time, please hold on. At the same time, what that allows us to do is to keep our powder dry on future development. Because one thing I've heard time and time again is we don't want another certain store, or we don't want another certain store. If we own the property and we are moving forward, then we have a say by selling the property, putting it back on the market. We have a say in what it becomes. We have a say in what it would look like. We have a say in all the characteristics of what that building would become, okay? So I'm actually asking for consideration to move forward, and the motion on this particular item would be to give staff direction to enter into negotiations for the acquisition of the 2 parcels of land that are currently for sale with the big sign out there. I drove by it this morning just to make sure on Thomas Road, which was brought to us as a proposed parking garage, but I think that we could do a better job controlling the short-term and the long-term future of that piece of property, giving it a public use, but also with the overall idea of redesigning the Midtown area. The money would come out of the CIP budget, capital improvement budget, that we had the presentation on after I just checked with the city manager. And of course, before any final acquisition, purchase of the property, it would have to come back to us. So what we would be doing tonight is scrapping the RFPs, okay? Moving forward with an overall master plan of the Midtown area, not just parking, master plan. And I'm asking for consideration for the acquisition of the 2 parcels, or the motion would be to direct staff to enter into negotiations with the acquisition of the 2 parcels. That's my 2 cents. We can open it up for discussion. Commissioner Matlow.
Well, I was going to say you copied off my homework, but then you threw us a curveball. I'm open to that discussion. I wouldn't want to pinpoint that specific location. If we want to look at the greater Midtown area and see if there's a surface lot that we could get at a lot less cost than some of the garages were considered, and look at the entire neighborhood and see if there's other parcels that provide more parking and that sort of thing as a temporary measure as we try to bridge this gap between where transportation's going and those sorts of things. I'm open to that. I want to be prepared to vote on that today, but I do think if we wanted to look into that and just explore the operation, I'd be open to that in the future. Largely, I agree we should reject both of these, and I think when we're talking about these types of projects, I'm concerned with the urgency of now. And as a small business owner in Midtown, the urgency just isn't there. I'm across the street from the proposed site. We just had our best year in 5 years. So I don't think it's accurate to say that this demand has to happen now. So I do think we should take that step back and look at it. And then I think it was mentioned earlier, if we're gonna invest in parking, let's participate in the rewards. I think there's all sorts of things we can invest in. If we want to do things that don't bring a lot of return, I think we should be building more affordable housing. We could throw money into all sorts of things that will help if that's the game we're playing. But largely, I think parking is a profitable business, and I think this is something the private sector can supply. I think if there's a demand for it, they will. I would hope. If you have multiple properties, and I really applaud the developers who have been doing work in Midtown. It's a great area, and I wonder if we could work with them if they have multiple properties, if they wanted to develop a private garage, that they could use that parking all throughout the district, or work with other developments in the future, but I want to be comfortable committing public funds to that. So was there a motion on the table, or was that? Okay.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
One first question: do we know the cost of making that purchase?
I do not know what the offering price is. I do have an idea just by going on the property appraiser's website what the property appraiser appraises that property at, and I believe it's about $400,000. The beauty of that specific piece of property is that it is directly across the street, as it was mentioned, from several of the businesses who raised the most concern about parking in the Midtown area. The beauty of that piece of property is that I heard loud and clear from the citizens that they are afraid, because it is currently for sale, that somebody could come in and put in a type of store that does not fit the character of the Midtown area. And it already would take minimum impact to preserve surface parking that is already there. If you drive by, they got the apps up. And so it allows us to also control the destiny of that piece of property when the city, in my mind, would definitely not hold it forever. It would be an appropriate time to sell it back to the private sector and allow them to develop it. But we would have a say in the look, the shape, the feel of what that piece would come. So I do agree with you, Commissioner Matlow, that there's an opportunity to look, for specific parking solutions, surface parking solutions. This piece just seemed to be very appealing because it's for sale directly across the street from the targeted area that we've been talking about. It already has surface parking available with the opportunity to expand it. And on top of that, I think we can help alleviate some of the concerns in the neighborhood when we talk about the overall master plan and the future development. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
My second question is, are we still considering doing a study for future use to put a process in place?
Absolutely.
Okay. So in that vein, I would like to see that other projects that we are working on, that we have a defined process that we follow for projects of this nature that has such community impact, that we start it at this point and work it through so that when we're comparing and we're looking at the process for all projects, they have been processed the same way, if you follow what I'm saying. I'm in favor of doing a study and having the information available because you know I'm a data person. I believe in the data if I trust the source. With that data, we can make some decisions. But I just want us to remember to use the same process when we're looking at all projects, no matter what part of town the projects are proposed in.
Great idea. Dr. Bryant?
I have 3 points. I am totally in favor of rejecting all bids. That's the first thing. I think there has to be a plan. And I'm sure that whether it's the master plan, which is probably most favorable in terms of seeing the big picture. I am not in favor of making decisions regarding acquisition of any parcels without the input and review of staff to determine fiscal impact. And then I don't mind if it's at the next meeting, but I think we need to make informed decisions based on data. So that's my response.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be redundant, but I agree with rejecting all of the bids. I think that's the prudent thing to do. I do agree with a holistic master planning process for Midtown. That makes sense. It's long-term. It's not just a short-term Band-Aid approach. But I, too, have a problem with the fiscal impact, and there are projects in the queue that are supported from that capital improvement plan budget. Now, And so I would certainly want to know, and I'm not going to commit today without knowing the actual fiscal impact and how that will impact the budget that was approved for this fiscal year and the projects that were identified to come out of that budget. We would have to have that discussion. And as Dr. Bryant, Commissioner Bryant said, that analysis coming from the city manager and staff.
Right.
I guess just to sum everything up, I think we could get there with, and I'll make this a motion to direct staff to reject all bids, work with the Midtown Working Group, and open up the Midtown Working Group to more participation for anybody else who wants to join, and as a parking strategy, and have them, along with staff, develop a parking strategy and parking solution. And part of that strategy include looking for targeted parcels that we could use to acquire for that would be feasible for short-term parking to purchase.
Second.
Wonderful. Any further comments?
Just to make sure I understand your motion, especially the last part of it. Are we doing a master plan? Does your motion reflect the request of the mayor to do the master
plan for the entirety
for
of
the
Midtown?
entire area? Yeah.
I did not include that. Just a specific parking strategy between the city staff and the community.
Oh, well, I'm going to withdraw my second because I thought that
we could. I'm not opposed to it, so if we want to amend it to include the master plan, I'm absolutely. Yep. Yes.
All right. Reject all bids. Move forward with the master plan. And direct staff to become creative in short-term surface parking solutions and bring back options.
Yeah, I think have those work with the community and the working group to identify parcels that are agreeable that we may consider.
Right.
So yes, yep, okay.
Bring back options.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Is there a second to Commissioner Matlow's motion?
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Okay, it is 6:13. It is 6:13. We are going directly to the public hearing. Folks, if you are not staying for the public hearing, I ask that you please try to leave quietly so we can move forward with the meeting. We're running a little bit behind schedule. Mr. City Manager, we are on 15.01. Excuse me, City Attorney, 15.01.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 15.01 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 19-0-03, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee updating the capital improvements element of the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability and conflicts and providing an effective date.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Do we have any comment? Is there a motion on the table for approval?
So moved.
Moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you. 15.02, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 15.02 is the first and only public hearing on resolution number 19-R-01, a resolution abandoning a 501 square foot portion of a right-of-way located along East Gain Street in the city of Tallahassee, Leon County, Florida.
Do we have any public speakers?
No, sir.
Do we have any comment from the commission? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Do we have any other items on the public hearing?
No, Mayor.
Excellent. We are back on general business. We have one more item, ladies and gentlemen. That is the adoption of 13.05. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. 1305, you'll recall at your last meeting, you charged staff with working on a resolution. You had a resolution that you were asked to execute regarding the Clean Energy Plan. And this has been a topic that we've talked about, explored, and gained information on for more than a year now. And it was a pretty short time frame you gave us, but I thought we could bring it in for a landing, and I'm really, really pleased. I couldn't be more pleased to tell you tonight. We've got a resolution in front of you that we're recommending your approval. I believe we've got good support for the resolution, and we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks working with so many to get it there. In summary, the Clean Energy Plan resolution formalizes your commitment to aggressively move our community toward a renewable energy future and keeps Tallahassee as a pace setter and leader in energy sustainability. I mentioned over the last couple of weeks we've worked with the group known as Tally 35, and many of those members are here tonight, and I want to take a moment to recognize them in a second, if you don't mind. We also sought feedback from other community stakeholders, recognizing this obviously is a plan that represents the entire community. That includes our Utility Citizens Advisory Committee, which members are here tonight from that committee, as well as our local chapter of our Sierra Club, and Grant Gerhardt is here. I saw him somewhere. Here he is, right here in the center of the room, and we exchanged some information as well. So we got feedback beyond just one group, because we knew that was important. If I could take a minute, though, because I know they've waited all night, and it's been, when you do these things, these aren't the easiest things to do. You've got different ideas, and you've got different thoughts and different experiences. To bring it together and to have some agreement takes some effort. So I think that's what's happened. I think that's what we've got in front of us tonight. And I saw Steve Bean in the audience. And I know Steve, I'm just going to go down the list. Kim Ross, I know, is here. She wouldn't miss it. Darwin Gamble, Grant Gerhardt, I mentioned V. Miller, Lauren Corey, she was part of that Tally 35 group. Bruce Struble, Maisha Mitchell, Ken Hayes, I saw Ken in the audience. Steve Erse, spent a lot of time with Steve. Has he left? I hope not. Bart Bibler, Jim Davis. I know I've missed some, and I apologize if I did, but there were a lot of folks involved in this, and I appreciate their work on that. I'd also like to recognize Rob McGarry, who made it back for the meeting tonight, and David Byrne, who spent a lot of time working on it. So tonight we've got a resolution. You heard a speaker earlier talk about some edits that the Tally 35 group had put forth for our consideration. That was an amendment to the resolution you had in your agenda material. Your agenda material reflects the latest and greatest, so you can take action on that. It does, in fact, incorporate the edits that have been recommended by Tally 35, and it's before you tonight for your consideration.
Move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Well, hold on just a second. Do we have public comment?
Yes, sir. We have about 15 speakers.
All right. Now, let me be clear real quick. Is there anybody that wants to speak that's against the resolution? Because I think looking down the line, we got a lot of support up here.
We got one in the back.
One gentleman wants to speak. Please come join us. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dr. Seymour Rose, and I reside on Berkeley Drive in Tallahassee. I want to commend Mayor Daley and the city commissioners for their interest in protecting the environment. However, I object to this resolution as it is written for one main reason. You seem to be choosing a particular technology that's not proven. In other words, battery technology is not at the stage now where it could be widely adapted and used efficiently. I think that one obscenity is that, for example, a Tesla, a $90,000 Tesla, the government was paying our tax money a $7,500 rebate to encourage people to indulge their fantasies with this kind of vehicle. Now, I think we could learn a lot from California. The most cost-effective solution to improving the air quality and reducing CO2 emissions is to replace our old and aged diesel vehicles with the latest modern state-of-the-art diesel technology. For example, vehicles produced from 2010 onward have 97% less pollutants than anything that was made in 1990. In the state of California, they've reduced CO2 emissions by 50% by doing this, by encouraging or even mandating newer diesel vehicles. And also they've used extensively biodiesel, renewable diesel fuel, which also significantly cuts CO2 emissions. There was an article in the newspaper today, it was kind of hilarious actually, that FSU is spending $51 million to get a bunch of electric buses in order to save over 10 years, $10 million. You know, these buses cost 2 to 3 times the price of a modern diesel bus. So I object to paying my tax dollars, and you should also, for engaging in these kind of endeavors that aren't proven. So in summary, I think it's good. I think what you're trying to do is good, but I would urge that you in our capitalistic society, let our society pick out a winner. And right now, the winner is in electric propulsion. So I would urge you to reserve judgment on that particular wording where you encourage electric vehicles.
Point well taken. Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Patricia Thomas.
Thank you.
Tom Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, good evening. Your name and address, please.
My name is Tom Rogers. I live at 2050 Phillips Road in Tallahassee. And Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City staff, thank you for having me in Tallahassee. I've only been here 3 years. I am a retired engineer with an MBA. From 28 years in California. And what my function out there was leading projects. I had the privilege of leading energy and environmental projects out there. And as all of us know, California has some very good environment. We have had a lot of challenges, but it was a great experience for me to work in California for 28 years. And it's a pleasure to be here in Tallahassee. I've really enjoyed Tallahassee and participating with the Symphony in Florida State University. So thank you for having me. I spent 43 years in industry. Most of that time I was leading projects. And one thing that I really learned as a project manager and program manager was the value of planning. In all the projects that I did, either participating or actually being the actual leader of the project, what I noticed was wherever there wasn't a plan, almost invariably the project was not successful. And that means projects that could be as little as 3 months to 6 months, or projects that lasted 5 years. So it didn't really matter how long it was, but the planning was essential. And one thing that I saw in our current resolution, and thank you for your help, Reese, in getting this resolution ready for vote, approval, hopefully, is that there are 2 plans. The 2 plans, one is Clean Energy Plan, which is a very participative plan by the community, and the second one is an Integrated Resource Plan, which is a strong plan done by our public utilities, by our Tallahassee utilities, which I believe is a very strong team. I've been impressed with it. You know, having worked with Pacific Gas and Electric, I worked for a long time on projects with PG&E, which has unfortunately been in the news a lot because of the fires in California. But I can tell you they're strong, but I can guarantee you our utilities matches up to them very well. And what I noticed is there's 3 resources in a plan. 1 is people, 2 is time, and 3 is money. Now, when it comes to people, you know, you have to have a good, cohesive team, and I think our community has that. I've been very impressed with the type of people that are committed, with their backgrounds, with their orientation. Time it's a time crunch right now.
You're 2.5 minutes.
And finally, money. We don't know how much money we're going to need. We just know we have an urgent need. So in conclusion, I request your support for this resolution and your vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Steve Bean.
Mr. Bean.
And then Ken Hayes.
I'm tempted to say nothing because I know I don't have to say anything, but I have to say something, which is I am proud to live in a city that is led by a mayor and commissioners and a city manager who recognize the threat of global warming, recognize the moral responsibility to do something about it, and have the courage to commit to getting our community off fossil fuels. I also want to say that as I read the resolution, 2050 is a not later than date, not a wait until date. Pam McVitie, who could not be here today, made me promise to read her statement, which relates to that, why we need to go as fast as we can. And this is what Pam has to say. As a scientist, I look to the science to inform my positions. The science tells us that there will be dire consequences if we let average global temperature rise more than 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, and it gives us a carbon budget that tells us how much more carbon we can release without going over 1.5 degrees. The consensus is that if we keep emitting carbon at the rate we are now, in less than 20 years, we will have spent our entire carbon budget. 20 years from now is 2040. The resolution calls for 2050 as the date when Tallahassee reaches 100% clean, renewable energy. In order to stay under the 1.5 degree centigrade increase, we should reduce our carbon emissions by 2040. As we move to 100% clean, renewable energy, please push staff and push yourselves, and please push all of us to eliminate as much as possible of our fossil fuel use by 2040. We are all working against a short deadline to take difficult and expensive steps to keep our planet livable. Business as usual is not good enough. Pam McVitie always says it better than any of us. That's what she would have said if she was here tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ken Hayes, and then Roy Blondeau.
Mr. Hayes, good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, and staff. My name's Ken Hayes. I am living on 1935 Nanacoke Circle, and congratulations for bringing this forward. It's a great start. I'm going to echo the 2050 is not a great time to end. I want you to get started now, which is what I'm hoping the vote turns into. And the sooner the better. And if you manage to get it, half of it knocked out by 2030, that'd be a great start. But we'll see how it goes. I look forward to kibitzing, communicating, and collaborating on moving forward with the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roy Blondeau, and then Kim Ross.
Good to see you, Roy.
Good to see you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the other commissioners, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to congratulate y'all on coming up with a plan that's workable and that took a lot of effort. The thing I'm concerned about, I'm afraid that by 2050, I was trying to figure out how old I would be in 2050, and the prospects aren't good for me to be around then. So I'd urge you to do the best you can to try and get it sooner. I'm afraid that global warming is going to accelerate. It seems to be accelerating. It seems to be kind of out of control. So this plan may have to be modified in the future. Tallahassee, we're not an island. We don't have a wall around us like some people would want to build elsewhere. But we're subject to hurricanes and storms. We just had Hurricane Michael. And the global warming seems to accelerate and cause an increase in the storms and the intensity of the storms. If we have a lot more hurricanes, this last one could have hit Tallahassee. Tallahassee could be wiped out. The trees, I have trees in my yard. I live at 6712 Buck Lake Road. That one went through my neighbor's fence and through my fence, and could have been harmful. Really harmful. So we have to consider that. What's the prospects of more bad weather? So the plan is good. I support the plan, but just we should try, if possible, to do faster if we can, and maybe beat 2050. But thank you all for doing this. I'm glad to live in Tallahassee. It's a small town, but it's what we have, and we love it. So thank you.
Kim Ross, and then Grant Gelhart.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, guys. And I also invited my staff up with me. I don't know if Lauren's here yet. So Thank you for having us. Kim Ross, Executive Director of Rethink Energy Florida, 1203 Buckingham Drive. I think we fell out of that habit there. This morning, I posted, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you sow." As a reminder that whatever happens today is a start. That was before Reese and I spoke. Today, though, with us coming to consensus with city staff, I want to say thank you to the City Commission, the city staff, to my staff and my colleagues both within and outside of the Tally 35 Coalition. I am so proud of the work that we've done so far. Tally 35 spent hours upon hours building consensus on the amended resolution with several organizations and individuals that care deeply about both the earth and about our community. Climate change is here now, and the actions that we take today as a community in conjunction with 107 cities nationwide, including 6 other Florida cities, along with states, nations across the world, will help mitigate the severe consequences that are predicted in the future. So we look forward to continuing to build coalition and educating and engaging all sectors of the community as this plan develops. It's important to us that all voices be at the table, including our vulnerable communities, our business community, universities and their students, and the health sector. So if you're a business or community leader, you can look forward to my staff reaching out to you soon to talk and listen and engage with you over these serious issues. So to conclude what I have to say with one of my favorite quotes by Paul Hawken, he once said, "Forget that this task of planet saving is not possible in the time required. Don't be put off by people who know it is not possible. Do what needs to be done and check to see if it was impossible only after you are done." So thank you, commissioners, for doing what needs to be done, I assume, in just a few minutes. And also, I'd just like to, I'd like to say, if everyone after the vote can stay for a picture, we'd like to get a picture for Sierra Club and for Rethink Energy Florida. You want to say anything?
Thank you.
Grant Gellhart, and then the next speaker will be Jim Davis.
Hello, my name is Grant Gellhart. I live at 1906 Giulianini. I'm here representing a number of organizations. One is Indian Head Lehigh Neighborhood Association, also the Big Bend Sierra Club, and also I sit on the executive committee of the Florida Sierra Club. I am really, really happy. This is amazing. I'd always hoped for this, and I'm glad to see that we are here. The proposed resolution supporting 100% clean renewable energy for our community is an excellent document. It moves the city to become a more sustainable community. Using renewable energy and renewable resources, it will lessen our carbon footprint and lessen our impact on global warming. I urge you to pass this resolution coming up. The city resolution meets the standards and criteria for the Sierra Club's Ready for 100 initiative, and it will make the city, I believe, the 108 on the Sierra Club's list of communities that have adopted Ready for 100 initiatives. The initiative is intended to move the communities away from fossil fuels and onto more renewable and sustainable resources. I commend the city and their staff for taking this step. This resolution and goals and timelines will be the most far-reaching resolution in the state of Florida and put the city of Tallahassee as a leader in sustainability and renewable energy. Also, in my opinion, it will not only put the city as a leader in the state, but I truly believe it will be the leader in the nation after this resolution is passed, bar none. The goals set forth in this resolution will take Tallahassee into the solar age, making Tallahassee truly the capital of the Sunshine State. The city always talks about bringing new industry and making the city the place to be. I believe adopting this resolution will make Tallahassee the place to be. It will bring the city into not the 21st century, but I believe it will be leading the city into the 22nd century with this change. The ideas in the resolution, especially moving the city buses to electric buses, moving the city's fleet to electric fleets, and moving the city's energy use on the buildings to 100% by 2035, I think is commendable, honorable, and it just thrills me. And I would also like to
About 15 seconds.
mention that I would like to get all you folks together in a photo if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Davis. After that, Darwin Gamble.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you again. So, great seeing you all. I'm Jim Davis, Executive Director of Sustainable Tallahassee. I live in 1733 Old Plank Road, actually in Newport. And just great to be here. Like everybody else, I'd just like to echo the thanks of all the work you've done, work that Mr. Gold has done, and all the way you're moving forward in the whole sustainability area. We are encouraged by the efforts of this resolution, and I think it's, as a grandfather and a father, I'm very encouraged by this resolution, what we're moving forward. Another issue I'd like to just say is I'd like to really formally thank you for last month adopting the Capital Area Sustainability Compact. I think the city is a very important partner in that, and really appreciated the county, the city being involved, but also we, as a member of the compact, I think the city will bring a lot to the compact, and I think the compact will bring a lot to sustainability efforts in our community. So we're really looking forward to that. Finally, I just want to thank you all again for all your sustainability. You're moving forward, your new department with sustainability, and I just, again, thank you for what you all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Munir Humayun, and then Deb Swim.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. My name is Munir Humayun, and I live at 2315 Burgoyne Drive. I want to thank you for this, I would say, bold leadership here on climate change on the part of the mayor, on the part of the commissioners, and we greatly appreciate the city staff here in working with us in pulling together this resolution. When you try to execute this resolution, you will discover that there are certain parts of it that are really easy to do. There are other parts that are going to be so hard that you're going to find, well, first of all, they're going to be left to people long into the future because 2050 is a long way away. 2035 is already 15 years away. But the key thing that's going to come out of this clean energy plan, it will be the interim report that comes out, we hope, next year. And this report will identify what those low-hanging fruit are, and they would allow the city to make quick and decisive steps towards reducing emissions very immediately, for which the sitting commission, of course, gets the immediate credit. And we look forward very much to this. I want to again thank you all for putting this forward and the large amount of time and effort that's gone into the meetings. Thank you.
Deb Swim, followed by Kara Fleischer.
I'm Deb Swim. I'm an attorney. I've worked in the area of clean energy since the early 90s. I'm familiar with Reese Goad and Dave Byrne and David Brinkford, all with the city utility staff. We've worked together on clean energy over the years. Strongly support moving forward with this. I've worked some with the Tallahassee 35 group. I'm so thrilled that you guys are moving forward in this direction, and I think once we get started, there's going to be a massive momentum that'll build on itself. I encourage you to, as you say in the resolution, have a transparent and open, inclusive process. And to that end, there's some incredible resources here in this community that can save you money on number crunching and figuring out strategic plans. So please include them in a meaningful way early on and throughout. Thank you very much.
Could you give us your address
Bravo.
as well, please?
Thank you.
Could you give us your address as well before you wrap up?
1323 Diamond Street in the city.
Thank you. Kara Fleischer, and then Amy Zubali.
Hey, Kara.
Kara Fleischer, 4706 Inisher Court. Just very briefly, I wanted to tell you that this process has been an honor to be part of. With the meetings, the emails, the phone calls, the hours and hours of advocacy that's been going into it, it really feels like this is an example of the best of democracy, and I'm very proud of our city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Zubali, and then John Hedrick, who is the last speaker on this item.
Ms. Zubali, how are you?
Hello, Mayor Daley, Commissioners. Amy Zubali, 6352 Glasgow Drive.
I am a member of your Utilities Citizen Advisory Committee, and I just wanted to let you know we had a very lively and vibrant discussion on this topic a few weeks ago, and I look forward to continuing the discussion in many months and years to come. I also serve as the Executive Director of the Florida Municipal Electric Association, which is the statewide trade association representing Florida's 33 municipal electric utilities, of which you all are one of them. And I'm here today more in my professional capacity. Tallahassee has been a leader already in terms of your very low emissions and your efficiency and conservation initiatives. And I want to commend your staff, Reese and Rob and David, for the work that they have put into developing the resolution that you have in front of you. There are a lot of factors to take into consideration, from resources to technological advancements and costs, and I know that they've done a lot of work. And if you all adopt this resolution that you have in front of you, once again, Tallahassee will be another leader in the state of Florida. Very few of my members have gone forward with a resolution such as you have before you. So again, I want to commend the staff and you all for being the leaders in this initiative on the state of Florida.
Thank you.
John Hedrick.
So while John is coming up, let me also mention real quick, Amy, stand up, please, real quick. Amy Zuberly is the Executive Director of our Municipal Electric Association. So today at our workshop, we had a lot of discussions about mutual aid agreements, storm recovery. So whenever a storm hits this community, and those of you that are in the audience, you might not know this, a lot of the logistics behind those mutual aid agreements fall upon her shoulders down at the Emergency Operations Center. So she is there from the beginning of a state of emergency to well past the state of emergency, working with the city of Tallahassee in all of the electric municipal mutual aid agreements. So when we see all of those line workers from other communities here helping us, it's because of the fine work that Amy Zuberly does on our behalf. I have not seen you in the chamber since the new commission has been set. Thank you for all that you do for our community. We really appreciate it. John, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Good to be here with you today. I'm John Hedrick. I live at 1551 Cristobal Drive, number 1 in Tallahassee. I'm co-chair along with Kim of the Tallahassee 31 Coalition. I'm also chair of the Democratic Environmental Caucus Florida of Leon County, used to be of Florida as well. And I'm also authorized to speak for the local Democratic Party on this matter. This resolution you've got in front of you has been part of a long and difficult and winding struggle to get where it needs to be. But I'm proud to say that this resolution is much better than what it was starting to look like it was going to start off as. And thus we can definitely support this strongly as a good step forward for our community to be taking on the road to having clean energy in Tallahassee, Florida, the country, and trustfully the world. So we would urge your passage of this resolution today. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mayor, I only have speakers on unagended items. That was the last of our speakers on this item.
Wonderful. Is there a motion on the table?
Mr. Mayor, I am proud to make the motion that we adopt this resolution. I feel like I've been a part of the birthing of this thing because I've met with my Tally 35, my homeowners association president. It just feels right. So I move that we adopt this resolution.
Second.
And for discussion, kudos to our city manager, Rob McGarrett, and Dave Byrne and their staff, their support staff, because I know this thing went around, it changed faster, in the words of Dan Rather, faster than a tornado through a trailer park. Many times it was never set in Play-Doh, it was in Jell-O. And finally, it's set in stone. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Let me recognize the motion first, please. Okay. Motion for approval is properly made by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by Commissioner Bryan and Commissioner Matlow and the Mayor Pro Tem and myself. Commissioner Matlow.
All right, I'm going to say everything she just said again, but this is a big deal. Our city alone, we're not going to solve climate change, but we're going to try, and we want to be part of the solution. So we appreciate you all coming forward. And I really want to thank the city manager and the staff again of how quickly we got this resolution written and negotiated. I know I got an email this morning saying, we all agree, we've come to a consensus on what we should do. And I know that's hard work given the time frame that we gave you through the process. People let me know. They were like, the city manager's been very responsive, always willing to meet and talk about it and really discuss it. So I appreciate that extra effort in getting us here today.
Great. See no further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. We are now at, thank you. 16.01, do we have any unagenda item speakers?
Yes, sir, Mayor, we do. The first speaker is Wilson Barnes,
Colonel Barnes, thank you for joining us.
who apparently anticipated that he was first. He was already up. Then Dolores Harpool.
I'll just tell Commissioner Cox, ski weed. My name is Wilson Barnes, and I reside at 1949 Setting Sun Trail. I'm here this evening to give two congrats to individuals and the commission, individuals on the commission and the commission, and also to talk about some deep concerns that I have personally, things that I've observed. And if we want to move forward to a better place, we've got to confront them, and the leadership has to come from here. We can't let people do what they want to do. In the U.S. Army, I got accustomed to that over 30 years, how you get things done. First of all, Commissioner Cox, thank you for recognizing black people who have been on this continent over 500 years, 250 years of which was in slavery, almost 50 years doing reconstruction of lynchings, doing the movie Birth of Nations, et cetera, on up to the present. We made excellent progress, but we still got a ways to go, and I do appreciate you doing this 1 month that have been decreed to our people. I'm going to put it like that, for honoring the folks here tonight. Let's keep it up. And let me also hastily thank the commission for approving the land in which the Dr. Charles Evans of the Tallahassee branch NAACP building will be on. And now let's come to the concerns real quick. I heard you all talking a lot about, getting to this decimation of the climate by carbon fuels. Great plan. But let me warn you, because it's been tried before in black communities. In the NAACP, we recognize environmental racism when we see it. So I want to make maybe an uncomfortable reality, but I want to make sure you're all aware of our concerns in that direction. Now, let me also talk about diversity in government. This government, I came here when we didn't have all y'all people that look a little bit like me up there on that dais. And we had to really work through consent decrees, et cetera, to get where we are today. Now, we live in a nation, unfortunately, in which the climate is, let's go back to the old days, and some of it ain't good. I ain't going back to the old days, and I don't think any other black people are going to go. Please, this is important, sir. Now, having said that, what is it that I think you guys should do in the leadership? Because this is important, because if we don't get this right, we're going to have conflict. We've got to look at our police station, our police department, for an example, to make sure that there's diversity at every level.
Colonel Barnes.
The fire department, I'm going to sit down, sir, but I hope you got the message. Yeah. Okay?
We've gotten the message, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Next speaker is Dolores Harpool, and then Shauna Smith.
Ms. Harpool, thanks so much for joining us.
Good evening, Mayor Daley and all commissioners. My name is Dolores Harpool, and I live at 856 Violet Street. I'm here to make an appeal for your support of the placement of a special commemorative marker on the Cascade Trail in honor of Dr. Charles U. Smith. My deep respect for Dr. Smith began in his sociology class over 52 years ago at Florida A&M University. Dr. Smith was an extremely tough professor who demanded excellence from his students. Little did we know that this tough man with so much tough love would have monumental impact in the city of Tallahassee and beyond. He was a man of extraordinary intellect who was fiercely courageous and passionate about civil rights and social justice. He was an undeniably bold warrior who has helped in some ways through his students to shape the social conscience of our city, the state, our country, and regions abroad. The impact of his legendary sociologist, his service reached far beyond the classroom. While serving as an educator, mentor, and author, he waged many battles and influenced several victories to the benefit of all local citizens. Outside of his serving as FAMU chairman of the sociology department and director of graduate studies, he became the first Black chairman of the Leon County Democratic Party, assisted students in organizing for boycotts in public venues in Tallahassee, was a life member of the NAACP, and for years helped to organize opportunities for locals to meet their legislators while raising funds for youngsters to attend his alma mater, Tuskegee Institute. He also supported the upscaled, highly fashioned, and functional entry to Tallahassee's noteworthy Southside University, and was a strong advocate for the renaming of the previous Canal Street to FAMU Way. Tallahassee is rich in history and high on diversity. It seems most fitting to add to the body of knowledge about our city information about yet another African American who has done so much to enhance the Tallahassee experience.
You're at 2.5.
As a citizen of Tallahassee, as one of Dr. Smith's former students, as a resident who has benefited from Dr. Smith's local campaigns, I urge your support and endorsement of a marker honoring this great giant of an educator, activist, author, and community leader. I am grateful for your attention, and I hope you will give favorable consideration to this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shauna Smith, followed by Raja Shika.
Shauna Smith, 814 Apache Street. Speaking as a follow-up to my good friend Dolores Harpool on the matter of consideration for erecting signage along FAMU Way of the Cascade Trails corridor in honor of my father, I'd like you to take this few moments to hear my appeal. He was a fierce opponent of racism, one of the most celebrated scholars in the history of Florida A&M University, says the Tallahassee Democrat. A classic example of a dwindling breed, the activist scholar able to befriend people while forcefully standing up for what he believed was right. Gerald Inslee, Tallahassee Democrat, one of the nation's leading sociologists, researchers, and writers, he incisively captured the spirit and meaning of the civil rights movement. Former Florida A&M University President Walter Smith. Let me start by saying, lest we forget, quote by Martin Luther King, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. My father was born in Williams-Cox County, Alabama, in a town where it was not unfamiliar to have no electricity, no inside toilets, no plumbing. And from that, he went on to school never went to public school in his early days because you weren't able to do that. So he had a lot of education through Presbyterian schools and Lutheran schools, went off to boarding school at the age of 11 where he remained in dorms until he completed his PhD at Washington State University at the age of 24. He was influenced certainly by his parents and certainly by the conditions that he came out of, which he didn't realize was so bad until he left the area and saw what opportunities and the access and availability of other services. Influenced by his parents coming out of the Great Depression, a professor at Tuskegee University who encouraged him to study sociology. He's challenged the status quo and unequal political and social and economic systems in our society.
You're at 2.5 minutes.
He was an activist who fought through prejudice and bigotry and fought for the Black Americans' access to fair housing, education, financial integrity. He spoke out in many areas of public discourse for blacks to be given the same opportunities as all races. He was a he published 5 books, and he was verbally eloquent, had a powerful imprint on all persons across all disciplines.
Thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate it. I'm afraid that we're at the end. Can you give me a quick
okay. So just let me say that he wasn't chosen to be honored as a foot soldier on the sidewalk that's there today. But I appeal to the commission to consider acknowledging his imprint on this community by erecting some signage along FAMU Way, which he commissioned or appealed to the commission for 15 years to have in place.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Raja Shika.
How many more speakers do we have, Jim?
7. A couple of them referenced the parking garage, so those may be fairly quick. I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor, will we have an opportunity to come back and, once all speakers are done, we'll have an opportunity to come back and address some? Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Raja, how are you?
Well, I'm here before you.
Good to see you. This is, you all know I'm a Wolf Scout leader in Cub Scouts. This is our fearless den leader, or pack leader, I should say. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a request for consideration. Recently, state of Florida has done something called Deregulation Marathon 2019. They looked at every rule, every statute, everything. Sorry, I didn't realize that. Recently, state of Florida has done something called a Deregulathon 2019. It is basically looking at all the regulations to deregulate and make Florida a competitive place for businesses. I would request city to do something like that to make Tallahassee the #1 business attraction in state of Florida. Thank you.
Great. Look forward to working with you on that.
Next speaker is Max Hurley, and then Adner Marcelin.
Mr. Hurley, good to see you. Name and address, please.
Max Hurley, 117 South Gadsden Street. I am here tonight, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Mayor, on behalf of Lime, to talk about a very exciting potential partnership with the City of Tallahassee with Lime, as well as any other scooter company who would like to apply or participate. So this is a model of a potential permitting process. If you go to the next slide. So, I got a clicker, okay. Okay, so this would be a 6-month pilot program that would run from May 1st to October 30th. As we know, we have a very transient community and population, so I do think it's important that you do it during the summer, so that way we could determine what we wanted to change, if anything, midway through. Under this, it would be up to 3 companies that would be permitted with, around, any of these numbers are obviously all you all's decision. But we think it would be good to have a requirement of up to 10 deployments nationally. This is something that we saw in the case of Pace. We had a company that just exited the market on the bike share, so we do think it's important to have some experience, especially if we're going to put a cap on the number of companies that could participate. So this is a map. Originally, this gray map, the darker gray, is the regions that we had suggested doing a pilot program. As you can tell, that's a pretty large area. That area is about 14 square miles. After some feedback from the mayor's office, we looked at a more narrow pilot program. So that yellow is the FSU, FAMU, downtown, Cascades, and after some of the feedback tonight on the parking garage, I think we should look at some residential area, and clearly there's an interest in innovative micromobility solutions in Midtown, so I think Midtown would be a good participant in this, and obviously we'd want to have neighborhood buy-in. So I also think it's important to have a staff-empowered approach. So we'd like for staff to be able to modify this as we go through it. If we want to change the geographic region, if we want to change the number of companies that can permit, the costs associated with that, the length, or just cancel it all outright, you all will be going on recess over the summer, and so if we codify it into ordinance, you wouldn't be able to move on your feet, and I think that's, it allows staff to do that.
You have about 30 seconds.
Obviously, May, June, and July is a lot different than August, September, October, so you might want to adjust accordingly. So I appreciate you all's time. Really what we need is a ordinance that would allow them on sidewalks and some sort of permitted process. And with that, I'll close, and I am happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Certainly appreciate it.
Next is Edner Marshallin, and then Delatry Hollinger.
Gentlemen, how are we?
Good afternoon, everybody. All three of us are going to go together to eliminate time and save time, so we do appreciate it. As the president of the Tallahassee branch NAACP, I'd like to thank Mayor Daley, the City Commission, and our deputy city manager, and our city staff for what you all did today. It goes a long way, not only in the Frenchtown community, but also assisting us. And I'd like to bring our immediate past president, Delatry Hollinger, who worked very hard on this during his presidency, as well as Dr. Connie Evans to finish out.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
I don't know what to say. I have seen all of you three. This is the fourth time this week. And it has been a pleasure. Really pleased that you all are where you are, each and every one of you. And I just love you to death. I just want to say that thank you so very much for donating the land. However, if you knew my husband, and most of you did, he was a very proud man, and he was interested in making sure that your rights were honored. I mean, how many people do you know, a person that has even sued you guys to get rights and things done, and then you would give us a building because he wanted a home for the NAACP. Most people think that the NAACP is a paid organization. It's a volunteer organization. And the time that he put in making sure that everybody's rights were honored, and in the moving and preservation of that historic building, I can tell you right now, being a very private person, he would not be proud that you all are doing all this honoring him. But I thank you on behalf of our family.
I do want to thank Mayor Daley. We discussed this at length, and I really want to thank you for having it on the agenda and for doing this for our branch on today. So on behalf of our 2018 Executive Committee and members of our Executive Board, we're very proud, very thankful. I'd also like to thank the Commission, Deputy City Manager Cynthia Barber, Mr. Michael Parker, and everyone else who was involved. And this is one of the key things that I really wanted to do. So I'm very elated to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just wanted to recognize our members. If you all would just stand so we can save on time. Thank you. And I express that thanks to you all. Thank you.
A lifetime.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'm so tired.
Mr. Hollinger, I believe you are next on a different topic. and then Jada Craig.
Good evening, Commissioners. I didn't know Ms. Smith was going to be here this evening, but may I suggest that the markers that go along FAMU Way be a designation from this commission of that roadway as Dr. Charles U. Smith Way, and similar to what the city just did for Reverend Steele, especially considering that not only was he the reason it was named FAMU Way, as Ms. Smith just mentioned, he led a 15-year fight for that, but he also came back in his later years, a few years ago, and had a one-block portion from Adams Street to Monroe Street renamed FAMU Way as well. So I think that that is not a very tough ask of the commission to designate that roadway in his honor. And I'm here this evening to speak about, ironically, the Capital City Country Club and the cemetery that is there. Many years ago, there was a plantation. Well, first I want to start, I had the opportunity to speak on the Perspectives radio program hosted by Tom Flanagan with Mrs. Altamise Barnes and Commissioner Williams-Cox. And there was a caller who asked about there being a cemetery containing slaves at the Capital City Country Club. And indeed there is. I pulled an article from the January 28, 1971 Tallahassee Democrat, as well as an article from the October 24, 2001 Tallahassee Democrat. And it details the fact that there are indeed graves there that were part of slaves who were buried on the Houston plantation. I'm here this evening to ask that we recognize that. That 1971 article, it's been 48 years. The 2001 article where Commissioner Billings and Anita Davis raised this concern was 18 years ago. And I think it's high time that on this city-owned property, there be some type of recognition given to the fact that there is a cemetery there containing the bodies of Black people. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Delattre.
Next speaker is Jada Craig, and then Ian Bone.
Jada Craig? Ian? Moving on.
Each of them had noted the parking garage as their topic, and they may have gotten an update
Wonderful.
prior to
Do we have
speaking.
Do we have any other speakers?
Last speaker then is Bill Shack.
Mr. Shack.
Hey, what's happening? I like being last. All right.
Good evening.
How y'all doing? Good evening. Bill Shack, 3109 Tipperary Drive. I'm going to read some notes, so I apologize for not staring at y'all, but you are beautiful. Commissioners and Mayor, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I was in attendance last night for the meeting on the public safety complex, and watching tonight, once again, it seems to be clear that we seem to be going backwards and not forward on projects, and I think that's a little disappointing. The police station is absolutely needed years ago, yet we are about to delay the work, hours of work I'm sure the city staff put in to move this thing forward. And what shocked me most about last night is that not one commissioner grabbed the microphone during that meeting and actually thanked the police and stopped the bashing of the police that was going on last night by multiple residents. I was proud in my 3 minutes to support them and let them know that I supported them. Now, the parking garage seems to be, to get to a point where the work that was done was not sufficient enough to bring it to the citizens, and now we're going to go backwards on that project too. However, we'll move like gangbusters to get Tallahassee to commit to a resolution with a specific time frame regarding renewable energy. Everyone knows that the cost of becoming free from fossil fuels is very high. But let me be clear. I'm not against becoming better stewards of our planet, and I applaud your effort, and I applaud all the effort of all these groups that are passionately involved in it. However, delaying serious issues such as our high crime rate, police department needs, public safety, children's issues, economic segregation, racial problems, traffic issues, business development, airport viability, and other issues do not just go away because you guys approved a resolution. So they're still very important to our community, and I just ask you to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shack. Certainly do appreciate it. And let me just real quickly mention, You're right. We did not have microphones up there because last night's town hall meeting specifically was for us to listen to the public. However, I do know that many of us went up to the good men and women of the Tallahassee Police Department after the meeting and personally thanked them, as we always do. I always take the opportunity to thank them for what they do on a day-to-day basis. And you're right, it was a tough meeting. It was, very tense on both sides. It was great public participation, though, and I was very pleased to see that many people come out and care about the community and how we're moving forward. Do we have any other public comments for this evening?
We do not.
Excellent. We're going to move on to the final part of our agenda. Basically, for the good of the order, if any commissioner has anything that they would like to bring forward, start with the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your comments were a perfect segue into what I want to suggest for this evening, in that we spent the last 2 evenings hearing from the community, from the public, concerning proposed plans for the public safety campus. And though we had public input prior to that, prior to the actual plan coming to the point where it is, and there was support for it, there was support for it last night, it appeared that the overwhelming sentiment was that there was not support for the law enforcement campus being located in the Town South Shopping Center. And so, and I applaud the residents of Midtown for what they've done here this evening, that kind of participation. And, they were listened to in their request to slow down the process and do things a little differently. And so what I would like to suggest, Mr. Mayor and my colleagues on the commission, that we abandon the Town South Shopping Center as a site for the law enforcement campus and direct the city manager to bring back to us at our next meeting a plan for the design and alternate sites for consideration for our law enforcement campus.
Can we, would you consider design, process, and alternative sites?
Well, I assume that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
We're on the same page.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about, is in the design professional seeking community input on what needs to be in that campus, and then also looking at sites that would be sufficient to house the redesigned campus.
Motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Comment, Commissioner Matlow.
I agree that we need to go back to the drawing board on location and do a much wider search and look across the city for where we're selecting. And I think I like the idea to go ahead and bring back the design so we can keep the process moving, because we don't want to delay the development of the station. But I also think we need to look at, and this will be separately and doesn't have to be a motion today, but what we're going to do on that South Monroe corridor. We've heard today of ways we can build a midtown parking garage and those sorts of things that have some sort of return on investment. So I'm not sure, maybe we can look at building an independent tempo center, maybe even on that same property, looking at other retail options that we can develop there. But I think outside of this meeting, we should have a discussion about what city investments we can make over there, and get the community support and have them bring that to us.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Let me say that I applaud the effort that was put in to bring economic impact to the South Side. And I think that as a member of the South Side, I live there, we want economic impact. But we heard over the past 2 nights, but not with the police station leading the way to that economic impact. So if we can find a way to, since we're going back to the drawing board, uncouple that and look at a real economic development plan for the South Side, I think that that's what residents are really saying. They want sidewalks, they want lights, they want, the basic things that the other parts of town have. Help bring the South Side up to where other parts of town are. So I think that we need to do that, and do look at other alternate locations for the public safety campus. You know, I try to tell people the public safety campus, but even our, that is a public safety campus and not the police station, but even the contractor who I met with, I tried to correct them, and they told me, no, that we built a public safety campus over here off of Easterwood. That's what they're calling the CDA, the public safety campus. So if they're confused, then you know we're confused about what is it really. And so I think we need to uncouple those items and look at some community and economic development for the South Side.
Dr. Bryant.
I am in favor of definitely looking for economic vitalization on the South Side. In the motion, it was to abandon, I'm not sure what you said.
Southside Shopping Center.
The shopping center. I think that we need to keep an open door to wherever. I think we really do need more than one place to start with. We need some kind of study done and various locations vetted out. However, I'm not totally in favor tonight of just saying just eliminate the current site as a non-option. I think it should be vetted along with several other options. And there's some other things that I think need to be done from our ability to communicate what really is being talked about when we talk about the South Side and the complex. I'm not sure that we've done all that we can do to tell that story, but I am totally in favor of us going and getting other options. If we don't have any, we do need other options to review. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Matlow.
I agree with that. I think the motion is to go ahead and suspend the contract negotiations on here, and if we're open to it, ask to not slow down the process. If we're prepared to just go ahead and direct staff to be able to issue an RFP citywide for something 10 to 15 acres or that fits what we're looking for. So as we're concurrently having this conversation, people can bring us more proposals.
Mr. Mayor.
I mean, if there is an interest in a substitute motion, but I think we clearly heard over the last 2 days from the 30 or so, maybe 40 or so people that spoke, that there is not an interest in this law enforcement academy on the south side of town. And I think that it was clear to me, and that's why I'm making this motion tonight, that what is being looked at are things like improving police and community relations. We heard time and again that that's part of the problem that we've got. And I know Chief DeLeo has done a tremendous job, because I've been out there those hot summer evenings when we walked neighborhoods for Operation Safe Neighborhoods, when it was just us walking those neighborhoods and sweating profusely. And I can't imagine how they felt with those uniforms they wear. But that is something that we've got to look at, real or perceived. It came up time and time again. And so that would be, Mr. City Manager, the other issue that I think we need to begin to look at and determine how we're going to address those issues of distrust, lack of partnership on the part of the police department in our community. Like I said, real or perceived. A lot of it, I think, is driven by what we hear in the national media. I've lived here 40 years myself. I know that there have been incidences, and I don't discount those at all. But under Chief DeLeo's leadership, I think we have not seen that, and he has made it through the adopting the community policing model, made it his goal to see that the police department does have that kind of working relationship with the community, but that's going to take some time. And so, like I said, if there's an interest in a substitute motion, entertain that, but my motion is that we abandon the Southside Shopping Center as a site for a police campus at this time.
Okay. I'm going to ask the city manager for a point of clarification, Commissioner Matlow, on something that you brought up. I'm not convinced that an RFP process is the appropriate process to go through for site selection, because we could possibly miss out on opportunities that are there simply because of the fact that whatever the property is available, it just is not in a position to submit to an RFP. City manager?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I've got some thoughts on this. I'd like to develop them a little further. And I believe the original motion was to bring back something at the next meeting. But my basic thoughts are, because certainly a method in this kind of effort would be to get your professionals. We've got a construction manager, possibly hiring the architect as well. Give them a list of criteria that we would say, here are the kind of areas we'd like to be, maybe throughout the city on major corridors, areas of land of certain size, not adjacent neighborhoods. We could give them a host of conditions and have them identify through their professional expertise however many properties we think is appropriate, 5 or 10, or, you give me that direction, and have them go identify those that we could then either negotiate for or then identify the procurement process. I think an RFP may take you too long and may shut you out of the market or opportunity for properties that you might like. And those are my early thoughts. I'd love the opportunity over the coming days to develop that, and I'd be prepared to bring an item back to you on March 6th if that suits your needs.
Is that a good point of clarification?
Totally support that recommendation from the city manager.
So, motion on the table, as I understand it, is that we are officially no longer looking at the proposed site on the south side of Tallahassee, but we are providing direction to the city manager to go out there and aggressively bring back other potential sites, process moving forward from here, the whole recommendation, but sending the clear message it will not be down on the south side of Tallahassee at that proposed spot. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Just one other point of clarification. South Side is more than Town South Shopping Center.
No. I just said specifically the proposed spot that we've been dealing with.
All right, I want to make sure we're clear because we're saying South Side, but Commissioner Richardson said Town South Shopping Center. But if there is a place, somewhere else, Southwest, wherever, we don't want to just not look south at all.
Right.
Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. That's why I limited it to
the south side proposed site that we've been discussing.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Any other comment?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Sure thing.
One other thing I wanted to address, because apparently there were those who came to address us here in the City Commission chambers and at the town hall meetings that seemed to think that I trivialized their input into this process. And what I want them to know, that I intently listened to everyone's input, intently, and took it seriously, and am glad that they took the time out of their schedules to come and to provide us with their input into what they wanted to see in this community and how they wanted this process to go forward. So if anyone felt that I trivialized their input, their involvement, their feedback on this process, I am sorry if I came across that way. And I just want them to know that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for saying that. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We are heading in a new direction. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything else to bring to the table?
I'm done.
Commissioner Matlow, do you have anything to bring to the table?
Yeah, I just like an update on, we used to always hear Tallahassee gets everything 10 years after everybody else. And recently it looks like with the scooter situation, we're getting things 2 or 3 years after everyone else, after they kind of have tested the waters and see what went right and what went wrong. So I'd like to see, I just want to make sure we're sending the message that Tallahassee is open for business. We don't want to bring necessarily pace bikes. I think we had a bit of a problem. We've seen them put in places on private property and tossed around. I want to make sure we avoid that. But I don't think I don't think we should be slow to letting people come to town to do business. And that's for the scooter situation, as well as recently a young woman came to my office to meet about bicycles that multiple people ride around town and was looking for some clarification there. So I'd like to see how we can be the most amenable to those types of projects. And then the scooter specifically, if we enter into a private program, pilot program, see what the challenges other communities have faced. I've seen them in Washington, D.C., and they were nice and neat, and I hear other communities, they get thrown everywhere. So if we're going to move forward with something like that, we need to look at what kind of deterrence, if that's a fine structure to make sure people are keeping our community clean if we welcome them into doing business. But I just want to make sure we're not telling people, no, you can't come here.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I'd like to support that. I took a test drive on one of those things, and although at my age, I don't think you'd see me scooting around Tallahassee on one of them, but I think it is a transportation alternative for citizens and visitors to Tallahassee, and I'd like to see us actually do a pilot project to see if it's something that the community would welcome and add a transportation alternative for those in our community.
Anything else to bring to the table?
I'd like to, are you done? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to revisit some of the public comment, the request regarding Dr. C.U. Smith.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly would support that and hope that all of us would, because whether you experienced him or not, you've heard enough about him. I experienced him personally, and he was tough. He was highly intellectual, and he expected those who he interacted with to be as well. I taught in the Department of Education at Florida A&M, and when he learned, he didn't hire me, somebody else hired me, and when he learned I was teaching a high-level class and I didn't have a PhD, he called me to his office and called me on the carpet. I didn't like it at all, but I understood where he was coming from. So he was a man of his word, a man of integrity, and I think that it is important that our future understand who paved the way for them to be able to have things as well as they are here in our city as we continue to grow. So I would like to make a motion, if that's proper, that we do place a marker as described in recognition of the work of Dr. C.U. Smith here in this town, and that it be on FAMU Way. That's my motion.
Yeah. I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the table made by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. We're getting a point of clarification real quick.
Okay.
Whether that is that a City of Tallahassee initiative? Is that a COCA initiative? Is that an IA initiative?
Commissioners, we have, as part of your blueprint IA meeting coming up in the end of February, they're going to be bringing back to you an update on the cultural trail development on everything on the north side of FAMU Way. If you want it along the trail, then I suggest you have that discussion at that point.
Right.
After this trail is formulated, built, constructed, turned over to the city in its entirety, then you'd have that ability to do everything on your own. But as it's going through that process on the north side, I think you still need to be working with your partners over at the county as they're working together to develop this cultural trail. Yeah. On the south side, the trail's not being considered on the south side. So if the placement of a monument or a sign on the south side is desired, we could do that through this process, no problem.
Yeah, Commissioner Williams-Cox, here's my suggestion. I mean, you have support. You're going to get a second. We'll have great discussion. It's more appropriate to do this at the IA meeting because it's a separate governmental entity. So as Wayne said, unless you want to wait for the formal transfer years from now of the trail to the city for maintenance, and then we can move forward, or unless you want to do it on the south side outside, if you want it formally part of the trail, it'd be more appropriate to do the motion and take a vote at the IA meeting.
Which I happen to chair.
Put it this way.
Did you notice I had some trust issues?
So we will make it happen.
Would you like to withdraw the motion and just take it up at the IA meeting? But we hear you loud and clear.
Okay. As long as we have support for it, I will withdraw that motion.
Great.
And take it up at the IA meeting.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nothing.
If I may, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I didn't know we were moving on to the next topic. I thought you had comments there.
Sorry.
I'd like to see go ahead and make a motion that we bring back a recommendation for a pilot program. I'm not sure what we were shown tonight is the best set. I'd like it to include more areas like Frenchtown that I saw blocked out, and I think we could I imagine that there's some sidewalk issues there that led to, maybe that's not the safest place for these types of scooters, but that leads to another conversation of we got to get some sidewalks in Frenchtown. So, but for this motion, I'd like to say that we prepare what the next step would be for the next meeting to forming some sort of short-term pilot program to see if it works without making a mess of our community with these things everywhere.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. I'm going to respectfully vote against it, and I'll tell you why. Number one, there's a piece of legislation going through the Florida House and Senate right now dealing specifically with this mode of transportation and how it fits in. It's not that I'm against it. I'd just rather wait and see what happens during session and then decide how to move forward. Number two, I had a conversation with President Thrasher this morning, but I have not had a conversation yet with President Robinson specifically on how the university campuses are going to be dealing with, in the college, and how they're going to be dealing with the scooter issue. And I am hesitant moving forward with city streets going through the college campuses and what type of interesting situation we have with that dynamic because of the fact that local ordinance states that we cannot have a motorized vehicle on sidewalks. Technically, they should be in streets, although personally I think they work better on sidewalks. So we would have to, we need to address that issue. We need to address the town gown issue with the university. We've got the issue moving forward with the legislature. My point is this, and I'm asking, would you mind just waiting until May, till the end of session, and I would love to support it, but let's work through a couple of these issues. Let's not ram it down the throats of the universities. Let's work with the universities' community partners to see if we can have, because I actually think that a great place to also have the trial run would be on campus and to see how the students react, especially in the fall when they come back. And just if we bring it back to the next meeting, I just don't think we're going to be in the right position for me to be able to support it. But if we come back towards the end of session, have a little bit more information, that just makes a little bit more sense to me. That's my position. So. Commissioner Matlow.
I'll never be in support of deferring our authority to the state government. I think, we are a city. We can set our own rules, and I think we're well positioned to do that. I think we should do that. Secondly, I do think we should work with the universities, but I think if we wait till May, by the time we get a pilot program, it'll be football season, and it'll be a lot bigger of a mess. So I think we need the urgency would be get this program going now so we can test it out during the summer months, and then if we need to pull it by football season, we have the ability to do that. I'm not sure if it's a full pilot program that we need to bring back next month, but whatever the next step would be to engaging our community partners and seeing what works best for everybody.
Right. Let me be very clear. In no way am I ever deferring my municipal authority on behalf of what may or may not happen at the state legislature, and I've got a 12-year record of that. What I'm simply stating is I do not want to create policy which, in fact, if they did pass something, we would have to come back and change anyway. Why don't we just take a second, make sure we have all of our ducks in a row before moving forward? It is not a deferment of authority. It's just trying to be smart in planning for an end goal, which I think we all agree upon, which is a test run pilot here in Tallahassee. That was my suggestion. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And having been a part of that process, I can tell you a bill like this, I want to say probably has a snowball's chance in hell of passing the first time that it's presented. So we went through this with Uber, and we had a ordinance in place for Uber, and of course, the state passed a statute which usurped our authority there. But in this case, I think we should go ahead and move forward, give it a try, and the legislature may not have an appetite for it at all, but I can't imagine a bill like that passing.
Okay.
In its first year.
Sounds great.
So.
Motion on the table is go ahead and bring an item back at the next meeting for consideration. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Passes 4-1. I believe that's all we have tonight. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Let me just go ahead and...
One thing, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think we addressed the recommendation about the graves in the capital city. And I think we at least need to either say we're going to investigate it or do something. So,
You want to make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, let me move. I'm getting there, but since you're rushing me, I'm going to move that the city manager will investigate, and if we have graves in capital city, that they are appropriately marked as such.
Second.
Excellent. So the motion is to bring back an agenda item specifically on how to address these type of situations for final review and approval, which I'm sure we will.
No, that wasn't my motion.
Well, I'm trying to put it in the proper posture for staff to come back with an analysis on how this happens and how do we identify the... Correct? You want to jump in, Madam Attorney?
I just wanted to state that we do have a lease agreement, so we have to consider that and what implications may be there. So it might be best to go ahead and just have staff give you an analysis of what the situation is and then report on you on the status of the lease agreement.
I received that.
Okay. Any further comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, could you, on the scooter item, who was the second on that?
It was seconded by the the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know what's amazing? Yesterday marked the 3-month anniversary of this new commission. And if you think about what this commission has been able to accomplish in 3 months, let me tell you, we got a lot of great things that we're going to be able to do. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned.
Mr. Mayor and City Manager, remember we need to do the picture with the resolution.